Chapter 586. Wenxian Palace. On the eve of the peace talk, Mu Qianshang, Luo Xingchen, and Jian Er appeared to say their goodbyes. They had left their own matters to help, but now that it was over, it was time for them to leave. Qing Ning brought wine over, and did not disturb the four of them. Women often did not understand the feelings between men, nor did they need to understand. Er sat in front of the door, her hands supporting her head as she looked at the four of them in a daze. Jiming, to my friends. Ningchen raised his wine jug and said seriously. Bang! The wine jugs clinked, and Er was speechless in the wine. The four of them drank a mouthful of wine, bitter and spicy. Jiming, I will wait for you in Desolate City. Once you're done here, don't forget our arranged battle. Jian Er put down his wine jug and left first. I'm also leaving. See you later. Luo Xingchen also put down his wine jug and waved his hand before leaving. Good friend, take care. Finally, Mu Qianshang said his goodbyes and looked at Er. Er, quickly grow up and be big brother Qianshang's bride. I don't want to. Er hastily shook her head and directly refused. That's too much of a blow. Mu Qianshang laughed and then left. Take care. In front of Wenxian Palace, Ningchen softly muttered as he watched the three of them leave. Meeting was difficult, parting was also difficult. This time, it was unknown when they would meet again. These people really grow up quickly. Qing Ning walked out inside. How can a region's geniuses lose to anyone? They're the only ones left in the once prosperous divine continent. Ningchen sighed. Teacher, Dao Kuei, Mu Bai, Eternal Knight Hierarch, Jianyi Marquis Triumphant Return. Even if they were restricted by the heavens and earth and their cultivation could not advance, their final martial path achievements were still supreme. If they were still alive, the divine continent would not need to fear anyone. After the peace talk, where do you plan to go? Asked Qing Ning. I'll find the heavenly mansion Star Venerate to have a talk. Then I'll continue searching for the immortal corpses. What about me? Er asked to make her presence known. Ningchen squatted down and rubbed the girl's hair. Er, you've been out for a while. Do you want to go back? Er slapped away the large hand on her head and pouted. You're burning the bridge after crossing the river. Eh? Ningchen laughed softly and said, You can also follow me. I'll teach you martial arts, real martial arts. Qing Ning's expression froze when she heard this. She understood what he meant. Have you decided? Qing Ning asked seriously. Yes. Ningchen nodded and said with a smile. Other than Qi, I have never truly accepted a disciple. Didn't Sister Qing Ning say that a person must be responsible? I owe the sword master a favor, so I'll return it to Er. Can I not call you master? Er probed. Sure, you can call me whatever you want. I told you to call me Big Brother Ning before, but you didn't call me that. Ningchen chuckled. Er nodded happily and said, Then you have to accompany me back to the sword crafting villa and tell Grandpa Sword Master about this. Yes, after the peace talks tomorrow, we'll go, Ningchen replied. I'll go prepare for the apprenticeship ceremony, Qing Ning said. No need to go through so much trouble. After saying that, Ningchen waved his right hand, and a wine cup flew from the table in the hall and landed in front of the little girl. Er, toast me with a cup of wine, Ningchen said seriously. Er picked up a wine jar and poured a cup. Then she brought it in front of Ningchen and smiled. You're not allowed to go back on your words. Ningchen smiled and took the wine from the little girl's hand. He drank it in one gulp and officially accepted her as his disciple. Beside him, Qing Ning shook her head helplessly. What a messy apprenticeship ceremony. Apprenticeship ceremony. After the ceremony ended, Er spread out her hands and said confidently. Ningchen stretched out his hand and gently tapped the little girl's forehead. Immediately, a complicated scripture entered the latter's mind. What is this? Er shook her head and asked in confusion. Heavenly scripture, Ningchen said softly. Hearing this, Er's eyes flashed with surprise. Heavenly scripture? She seemed to have heard of it. Don't tell others. Many people want to snatch this thing, understand? Ningchen reminded her. Yes, I understand. Er nodded her head vigorously and agreed. After doing this, Ningchen thought for a moment and stood up. He looked at the girl in front of him and said, Sister Qing Ning, if, and I'm just saying if, My identity is accidentally exposed and I have to face the various sects again. Please take care of Ener. Don't say such discouraging words. That day won't come, Qing Ming reprimanded softly. Ningchen smiled and didn't say anything else. No one knew what would happen in the future. The existence of the devil wouldn't be tolerated by the world. Sister Qing Ming, what are you talking about? Ener was confused and didn't understand. Just some small matters. Ener, don't disturb your master's rest. Go to Sister Qing Ming's place today, said Qing Ming. Okay. Ener nodded. Not long after, Qing Ming left with Ener. Ningchen stood alone in front of Wuxian Palace. Various thoughts flashed through his mind. Devil, you shouldn't have accepted her as your disciple. The voices of the 49 men and women rang out. What I want to do is none of your business, said Ningchen coldly. The more things you care about, the more impossible it is for you to pass the devil tribulation. That's self-destruction, said the very high heavens calmly. Isn't that what you want to see? Mocked Ningchen. You haven't brought disaster to the world. Instead, you've contributed greatly to the world. The very high heavens aren't people who can't differentiate between right and wrong, said the 49 in unison. I don't care what you think. Once this matter is over, I'll fulfill my promise and find suitable bodies for you. After that, we don't owe each other anything, said Ningchen indifferently. The very high heavens was silent. After a moment they sighed and said, Devil, let me give you a word of advice. No matter what the reason is, your identity can't be exposed. You must not test the hearts of others, because the hearts of others can't withstand any test. Ningchen didn't reply. He looked at the horizon and silently pondered. The next day, two supremes appeared at the front lines of the two armies. Leading them were Chao Tianxi, Xiao Bieli, Zhao Liusu, Reverend Li Shan and the others. They sat facing each other as they discussed the matter of peace. The two sides discussed the details for an entire day. There were many arguments during this time, but they still reached a consensus in the end. Ningchen stood outside the tent. He didn't participate in the negotiations. Peace hadn't come easily. He had already done what he had to do. Whether or not this peace could be maintained would depend on the sincerity of the heavenly palace and the inner realm. When the sun was about to set, Chao Tianxi and Xiao Bieli walked out of the tent. Their expressions were emotional. No matter what, the war was over. Minister of Heaven, pass down the order to retreat, said Chao Tianxi softly. Yes. Xiao Bieli received the order and walked towards the heavenly palace's army. Chao Tianxi looked at the knowing destiny star not far away. After thinking for a moment, he walked over. Ningchen looked at the heavenly palace's star sovereign and smiled. You finished talking so quickly? I thought you'd have to talk for several days. As long as the inner realm can peacefully accept my people, anything else is worth it, said Chao Tianxi softly. If the 5 regions had more star sovereigns, I think the heavenly palace would have lost this war long ago, said Ningchen emotionally. Knowing destiny, Marquis, my realm has never lost to the inner realm. We only lost to you, said Chao Tianxi calmly. Ningchen smiled faintly. It's meaningless to talk about this. Star Sovereign, I hope you can keep my identity a secret. If it's leaked, it won't benefit anyone. Chao Tianxi nodded. I understand. However, I really feel that it's not worth it for you. The Central Plains sects aren't worth your help. The Central Plains was never the one I helped. Star Venerable, I don't mind telling you the truth. If the strength of the Heaven Prefecture was only equal to that of the Central Prefecture, I wouldn't have participated in this war. However, the strength of the Heaven Prefecture is much greater than that of the Central Prefecture. Maybe you don't like to fight, and you just want to find a place for the people of the Heaven Prefecture to settle down. However, what about the other people of the Heaven Prefecture? Will they give up after they successfully take down the Central Prefecture? You can stop them when they lose, but what about when they win? Can you stop them when they win? After all, humans are not sages, and they are always chasing after more benefits. Chao Tianxi was silent. After a while he said softly, Knowing destiny, Marquis, your understanding of people's hearts is really frightening. I've experienced a lot. It's just an unforgettable lesson, said Ningchen. He had seen too many things since he had been conferred the title of Marquis. People's hearts were fickle. betrayal, slander, praise, gratitude, expectation. In this world, the most precious thing was people's hearts. But the most filthy thing was still people's hearts. Star Sovereign, there's one thing I don't understand. Why were your injuries more serious in the battle that day than in competitive Edge City? Ningchen turned his head and asked confusedly. The fact that they were able to win the battle 10 days ago was somewhat unexpected. Originally, in his estimation, their chances of winning were at most 50%. Half a month ago, the immortal corpses patrolled through Tianjing City and collided with our realm's transmission battle. I had no choice but to stop them. Unfortunately, I still failed, said Chao Tianqi honestly. Ningchen was shocked. The immortal corpses patrolled? Where did they go? To the east. It should be the Eastern Divine Land, said Chao Tianqi. Hearing this, Ningchen's eyes lit up. He was also in the Eastern Divine Land at that time. Did he miss it? Knowing Destiny Marquis, I still have something to arrange. I'll leave first. See you later. Seeing the change in Ningchen's expression, Chao Tianqi didn't ask more and said goodbye. See you later. Ningchen came to his senses and replied. Chao Tianqi looked at the setting sun in the west, and then followed the direction of the army's retreat. Ningchen looked at the figure of the former, gradually disappearing, and sighed softly. Finally it was over. At this moment, Ningchen's eyes suddenly shrank, and his expression changed dramatically. Ah! In the distance, two figures appeared behind Chao Tianqi, who was defenseless. One was purple, and the other was golden. A majestic palm was reflected on Chao Tianqi's back at the same time. Blood sprayed into the air and dyed the sky red, as well as the hope of peace. Chao Tianqi looked back with difficulty. He looked through the two people, and saw the knowing Destiny Marquis in the distance. At this moment, he was full of mistakes and regret. Chapter 587. The shocking palm caused fog to fill the sky. The hope of peace was always mercilessly trampled on when hope arrived. Chao Tianqi regretted it, and his eyes were filled with hatred. The man with purple light and the Buddha with golden light attacked together when the heavenly mansion Star Venerate let down his guard. One palm destroyed Tianqi's life. Heavenly mansion Star Venerate, your martial Tao origin belongs to us. As he spoke, the demonic Buddha and Purple Sky Palace sent their true Yuan into the former's body to steal his celestial ascension opportunity. In the distance, Xiao Bieli, who was retreating with the army, heard the commotion behind him. He turned around, and his pupils constricted. It was too late to save him. At the critical moment, a red light flashed in front of the two. Taisher appeared in the sky, his sword light surging. With a bang, Purple Sky Palace blocked the sword light. His expression turned cold as he said, Jiming Marquis, are you betraying the inner world by saving the enemy who invaded the 5 regions? Amitba. Traitors can only die. The demonic Buddha sent out his demonic energy. Golden light flashed as he attacked. You guys are really infuriating. Sword form, bury the heavens. Ningchen's eyes were filled with endless killing intent. Phoenix fire burned on Taisher's sword. Rays of sword light soared into the sky and turned into a rain of swords. A rain of swords poured down. Expanse after expanse of earth collapsed and caved in. It was as if the heavens and earth had suffered a calamity, and it was filled with desolation. The two blocked the swords. Purple energy and golden light flashed. Tens of thousands of swords couldn't get close to them. The two peak supremes, who were infinitely close to celestial ascension, displayed shocking strength. The battle between the peak supremes was earth-shattering. In the distance, outside the negotiation tent, the supremes of the alliance walked out. Seeing this unexpected scene, they tacitly agreed not to help. The death of the heavenly mansion Star Venerate was the result they wanted to see the most. As for the Jiming Marquis, the scheming and strength he displayed in this battle was truly terrifying. Everyone, who do you think this arrow should be aimed at? Zhao Liusu walked forward. She waved her hand and a moon appeared. She drew her bow. When the Supremes heard this, they looked at each other. No one said a word. Far away, in the battle, knowing Destiny faced two peak Supremes alone. After several moves, he was injured for the first time. His blood dyed the Taisher sword red. The sword trembled and wailed. The phoenix spirit was rapidly consumed, and the devil chi was becoming increasingly difficult to suppress. Deep in knowing destiny's eyes, a black aura lingered, and the signs of demonization loomed. Demon, you cannot continue fighting. Otherwise, you will no longer be able to conceal your identity, said the 49 men and women. Ningchen glanced at the star venerables of the alliance in the distance, who were watching with folded arms. The murderous intent in his eyes surged. He dashed out, took the severely injured heavenly mansion star venerate, and quickly retreated. You can't leave. The demonic Buddha opened and closed his hands. Dazzling golden light spread out, forcibly sealing the space within a radius of 10 miles. Zi Tiangong stepped forward and said coldly, Jiming Marquis, put down the star venerate, and I'll leave you a whole corpse. With just you guys? What a joke. With no way out, Ningchen made up his mind. Gathering the last of his strength, he took a step forward and leaped into the air. The nirvana technique reappeared in the world. Magnificent sword light gathered between heaven and earth. Before the sword was even used, the void around him shattered. Endless swords cut through the sky. The two did not dare to be careless. They gathered their chi and prepared to block the attack. However, the direction of the converging swords suddenly changed and broke through the sealed space. With a bang, the world of golden light shattered. Ningchen's figure flashed and quickly dashed out. You want to leave? Wishful thinking. Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha's expression darkened. They immediately followed at an extremely fast speed, not any slower than Feng Yuanwu's knowing destiny. The two sides were getting closer and closer. Just as they were about to surround each other again, heaven and earth suddenly shook in the distance. Sword Chi, Zi Tiangong, and the demonic Buddha's eyes trembled. They looked toward the southeast with shock. But at this moment, in the distant Tianheng city, beams of sword light shot up into the sky, flowing with brilliant colors and majestic momentum. Above Zhongzhou, tens of thousands of swords bowed together. The sword on sword that transcended the boundaries of the human world reappeared in the world. This is the 11th sword. Ningchen looked at the rising sword light in the distance. He could not hide the shock in his eyes. The sword venerable was actually not dead. The 11th sword that reappeared was unparalleled. It shot up into the sky from Tianheng City. After a while, the sword changed direction and flew toward the battlefield thousands of miles away. The sword that transcended the boundaries of the human world was limitless and limitless. It reached the battlefield in an instant. Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha's expression changed drastically. They gathered their vital energy and blocked the approaching sword light. Rumbling sounds could be heard as sword radiance shot out in a continuous stream, spanning tens of thousands of li and shaking the world. Two muffled groans. Blood splattered. The sword light penetrated their bodies. The two peak supremes were instantly injured. Marquis Jiming, please send the Star Venerable to Tianheng City. Thank you. Minister of Heaven, you lead the army to cover the retreat, a calm voice said from afar. Xiao Bieli nodded and stepped forward. He suppressed the murderous intent in his heart and said seriously, Marquis Jiming, you are faster than us. Please take care of the Star Venerable. Okay. Ningchen nodded. He took a last look at the Supremes in front of the tent and turned to leave. Peace was his delusion. In front of the tent, the Supremes saw Jiming's last look and felt their hearts tremble. This look was so familiar. It was almost the same as when the latter was forced into the demonic Will Ocean. Let's go. In front of the Heavenly Province's army, Zi Tiangong and the demonic Buddha didn't dare to stay any longer. They quickly left. The atmosphere of peace between the two armies was swept away. An indescribable pressure spread. It was so heavy that it made it hard for people to breathe. Minister of Heaven, those two weren't from the Five Territory Alliance. We deeply regret what happened just now. Please don't destroy the hard-won peace between the two territories, Li Shan Venerable said with a smile. Xiao Bieli looked coldly at the Supremes in front of him. He didn't say anything and turned to leave. Set up camp and prepare for battle. Yes. The army followed the orders and set up camp. They didn't take a step back. In front of the tent, Zhao Liusu put away her bow and looked at Jiming. Her eyes flashed. She didn't say anything and turned to enter the tent. Peace was her delusion. In a small courtyard in Eternal Heaven City, the black-robed Wuxia stood up from his wheelchair. His expression was calm, and his aura was restrained. No sword intent could be sensed from him. The Heavenly Province's sword sovereign had experienced the cycle of life and death, and finally stepped into the immortal realm. After an unknown amount of time, red light gathered in the courtyard. Hong Yi walked out and put down the unconscious Chao Tianxi. Wuxia didn't say anything. He took a step forward and condensed his yuan. Strands of sword qi condensed into the treading celestial's origin and entered Chao Tianxi's chest. In the next moment, blood flowed out of Chao Tianxi's chest, and the wound gradually healed. It was a shocking scene. Jiming Marquis, thank you. After a long time, Wuxia withdrew his hand. No need. This time, the inner realm went back on their word. I only did what I should, said Ningchen. The Star Sovereign's body and soul were both heavily injured. He won't be able to wake up in a short period of time. Jiming Marquis, although I was unconscious these days, I heard everything the Star Sovereign said clearly. I just want to ask, is this kind of peace really what you want? Said Wuxia calmly. Even the Sword Sovereign can't guarantee that after conquering the central continent, he can suppress the ambitions of the heavenly provinces, Sword Sovereigns, to spread the flames of war, right? Ningchen sighed. This is human nature and is unavoidable. At least, I can guarantee that after the war ends, the people of the inner realm won't be disturbed and won't go back on their word. Speaking of this, Wuxia looked at the young man in front of him and said seriously, Jiming Marquis, like the Star Sovereign, I didn't mean to bring the flames of war to the inner realm. However, the people of the heavenly province need a place to live. We have no other choice. Our realm has tried to accept the peace talks you proposed, but we have given up again and again. However, the inner realm's aggressiveness has left us with no room to retreat. Ningchen was silent. After a long time he said, Sword Sovereign, please give me some time. Okay. Wuxia nodded and said, Jiming Marquis, our realm owes you, so we will do our best to satisfy your request. However, if the inner realm continues to act like this, then this war won't stop, even if we have to bear heavenly punishment for breaking our oath. 10 days. Within 10 days, I will give the heavenly province a satisfactory answer, Ningchen promised. If you need my help, don't hesitate to ask, said Wuxia. No need. This is a matter of the inner realm. It should be resolved by the people of the inner realm. After saying this, Ningchen didn't say anything else. He turned around and headed north. Wuxia looked at his back as he left. There wasn't the slightest ripple in his calm eyes. Jiming Marquis, you have done so much for the 5 regions. If your identity as a demon is exposed in the future, how will the 5 regions treat you? Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, in the Golden Buddha Ancient Temple, a woman in a blue and white dress stood quietly. She was still patiently waiting for an opportunity. Demons were simple but extremely persistent. Halfway through the night, Ningchen appeared in front of the Golden Buddha Temple in red. Why are you here? Bai Yunlian was slightly surprised. I'm here to ask Miss Bai for a favor, said Ningchen seriously. What is it? Asked Bai Yunlian. Stop the West Earth Divine Palace's Purple Heavenly Palace, said Ningchen seriously. Bai Yunlian frowned and said, Why are you looking for me? You are now the military advisor of the 5 Territory Alliance. There are many human sovereigns who are stronger than me. Right now, the only one I can trust is you, said Ningchen calmly. Bai Yunlian's eyes flashed. After a while he nodded and said, Let's go. Thank you. Ningchen replied, and immediately set off towards the west. In the West Earth Divine Palace, 2 figures, one red and one blue, sped past. Not long after they disappeared. An hour later, when it was time to part, Bai Yunlian looked at the young man beside him and said seriously, Make use of the time. Purple Heavenly Palace's cultivation has reached the peak of the absolute realm. I can't delay it for too long. Understood. Please be careful, Miss Bai. After dealing with the demonic Buddha, I will immediately go and help. After speaking, Ningchen stepped forward and continued heading west. The demonic valley was a mysterious place surrounded by mountains. In the middle of the mountains, a huge demonic temple stood tall. The sound of a bell echoed throughout the entire valley. At this moment, dark clouds gathered in the sky above the valley. Black fog billowed and covered the sky. In the valley, the disciples of the demonic temple trembled. They looked at the sky and were shocked. Demonic chi. In the next moment, a black-clothed and black-haired figure slowly descended from the rolling demonic clouds. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He held Qi Lian in his hand. Chapter 588. In Yaoxiang Valley, the demon phoenix descended from the sky. Its demonic aura was surging like an ocean, so terrifying that it made one's heart tremble. Demonic technique, bury the heavens. The demon phoenix moved her sword, and a black phoenix appeared behind her. Countless sword auras rushed into the sky and into the dark clouds. At this moment, thousands of swords fell like rain, drowning the entire Yaoxiang Valley. The sky rumbled and the earth shook. As the sword rain fell, the valley seemed to have met with a heavenly tribulation, cracking and sinking more than 100 feet. The demonic body was emotionless, and so was the sword. Wherever the sword rain fell, blood and bones flew and scattered all over the sky. The area of the falling swords quickly expanded. Around the Yao Temple, golden runes appeared and blocked the rain-like sword auras. However, the sword intent could not be stopped. After a moment, the sword light penetrated the restriction and fell into the Yao Temple. Presumptuous! A furious roar came from the demon temple. In the next moment, a golden light shot up into the sky. A demonic Buddha in a golden kasaya rushed out and struck out with his palm, threatening to kill. With a bang, the palm and sword clashed, and the aftermath spread out. The mountains moved, and dust filled the sky. "It's you!" The familiar yet strange figure in front of him shocked the demon Buddha. The Xia Jiming Marquis was actually a demon. Jiming Marquis, openly challenging the Yao Temple. "Aren't you afraid of your identity being exposed?" The demon Buddha said coldly, "Dead people will not reveal secrets. Jiming is here to send you to the west to face Buddha." As he spoke, Ning Chen's Qi Lian shone brightly, and with a slash, the sword light roared out. Presumptuous! The demon Buddha was furious, and his staff stopped in the air. Golden light rose, and a curse echoed throughout the valley, blocking the sword intent. With a loud bang, the sword light collapsed, and the curse spread out, filling the valley. With the demon sound, the demonic aura in Ning Chen's body shook, showing signs of instability. Demonic technique, bloody path. Ning Chen's eyes turned cold, and the demon phoenix behind him flapped its wings. The black robe flashed by, and a bloody sword dyed the sky red. The staff flew across the sky and blocked the sword. But at this moment, the demonic aura came out of the sword, and with a slash, it tore the golden robe and dyed red. After exchanging a few moves, the demon Buddha was the first to be injured. Shumi Dharma Tathagata's holy light. The demonic Buddha's expression did not change. He rotated his staff, and golden light flourished as he forcefully counterattacked. Holy light. Ning Chen's crimson chain flashed across his hand. Baleful aura filled the air as he met the Buddha's attack head-on. The holy light and the evil spirit collided, and the evil spirit dispersed. The demonic body retreated several steps, and the demonic Buddha, whose realm was higher, seized the upper hand again. "Do I need to wait for you to stop the bleeding for such a small injury?" The demonic Buddha mocked coldly. "Your sharp tongue won't stop you from being defeated." Ning Chen swung his sword. Demonic chi surged out from his body, encircling the tip of his sword. Boundless waves of demonic chi shook the heavens and the earth. It was so forceful that it shocked everyone. Demons don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The demonic Buddha sneered and clasped his hands together. His magic staff vibrated and rings of golden brilliance spread out. The holy technique of the Buddhist cultivators had reappeared in the mortal world. Samara Dharma, six sins extermination. As Xiaochen shouted, the Buddhist sect's sin extermination move appeared in the sky. Under the suppression of the Buddhist energy, the demonic clouds in the sky showed signs of scattering. Demonic technique, blood flame. The demonic body revealed the Buddhist aura. Ning Chen clasped his fingers together and condensed his energy. The wind and clouds on his sword changed. In the midst of the demonic chi, flames rose and spread rapidly. Suddenly, the blood-colored flames formed a shocking momentum that could burn the heavens. suppressing the Buddhist's technique. As the Buddha and the demonic body collided, the heavens and the earth shook. The Buddhist energy and the demonic qi continued to devour each other. Since ancient times, the two forces were incompatible. At this moment, it was hard to tell who was stronger. After the intense tremor, Ningchen took 2 steps back. The corner of his mouth was red. On the other side, the demonic Buddha also took a step back. The blood qi in his body surged violently. Although the injuries were exchanged, they were not equal. Ningchen's figure moved again. An afterimage flashed past, and he slashed with his sword. The demonic sword cut through the air. The magic staff blocked the sword. The golden rings rang and the swords chimed together. The two people who had different temperaments, each of their moves and styles were at the pinnacle. They interweaved a rare martial art style. I have endured for too long. Demonic Buddha, I can't keep your life. Ningchen clasped his fingers together and pointed his sword. Sword light flashed in all directions. Streaks of sword qi rushed towards the demonic Buddha. The demonic Buddha moved and dodged the sword qi. His palm condensed vast essence, which entered the magic staff. Golden light surged and met the sword qi. The extreme essence collided, and the aftermath spread out. Both of them were injured and took a few steps back. After a few steps, the two of them stabilized their bodies and suppressed their injuries. Heavy injuries for light injuries. Jiming Marquis, how long can you last? The demonic Buddha sneered. Treasure your words. Each one of them will become your final words, said Ningchen coldly. Arrogant. The demonic Buddha snorted coldly and slowly raised his right palm. Endless Buddha vitality gathered. And in an instant, golden mist gathered from all directions. Above the 9 heavens, the wind and clouds changed, and lightning fell one after another to support the Buddha technique. Just as he was about to unleash his ultimate move, the demon cultivator's lips curled up in a cold sneer. In the next moment, the phoenix flapped its wings, and the demon cultivator's figure disappeared. His sword flashed through the air, instantly arriving in front of the demon cultivator. The sword entered the demonic Buddha's body. Blood splattered. The essence condensation technique was immediately broken. Ugh! The demonic Buddha snorted and quickly retreated. However, the sword qi followed him like a shadow. He could no longer escape. The demonic phoenix's shadow gradually faded behind the demonic Buddha. The demonic phoenix's shadow gradually faded behind Jiming Marquis. The demonic Buddha saw the clue. While he was shocked, he guarded his vital points and tried his best to drag the battle. The demonic Buddha's shadow flashed, and the sword qi went back and forth several times. Blood splattered. The demonic Buddha's shadow was extremely fast. The demonic Buddha was unable to defend himself. The sword qi entered his body. The demonic Buddha took a few steps back. Before he could counterattack, he was attacked again and again. It was difficult for him to summon his genuine qi. Purple Heavenly Palace, come and help. In the endless sword qi, the demonic Buddha who was constantly injured felt a life-threatening crisis again. He roared and asked for help from the master of the divine palace. At this moment, thousands of miles away, in the divine palace that towered into the clouds, a figure in purple suddenly opened his eyes. He stepped out and rushed to the demonic valley. However, as soon as he left the divine palace, the originally clear sky was covered by dark clouds. It was raining heavily. In the rain, a woman in blue stepped out. Water dragons circled around her. They roared and danced, blocking the way ahead. Demon, the purple heavenly palace said slowly. Human, from now on, you can't go anywhere, Bai Yunlian said calmly. You don't know what's good for you. The purple heavenly palace snorted coldly. His figure flashed past. Purple qi was vast and mighty. He slapped out a powerful palm. Waterfall. Bai Yunlian raised his hand. In the pouring rain, 4 dragons rushed down to block the former's attack. There was a loud explosion. Heaven and earth wailed. The water in the sky scattered and turned into rain, returning to the earth again. The moment the 4 dragons scattered, the water between heaven and earth gathered again. 9 dragons appeared and circled into the sky. The dragons opened and closed their mouths. Waterfalls poured down like the Milky Way hanging upside down, blocking all the way forward. Just as the two were fighting, thousands of miles away, in the demonic valley, the battle had reached its climax. The demon phoenix's sword locked the Buddha's body, blocking one sword strike. He was hit several times. The blood that splattered was the sound of a bell from hell. The knowing destiny devil body that came to kill displayed the true strength of the killing body. With the addition of the phoenix spirit, the sword momentum increased the speed of death. The knowing destiny body was one with three forms. The earth spirit of the devil body was the main force, the heaven spirit of the phoenix body was the main force, and the life spirit of the body was the main force. However, since the chaos of the Tianfu kingdom, the killing body was restricted by identity and the demonic tribulation. Instead of force, the killing body replaced force. However, the devil was not good at wisdom. Killing was the nature of the devil. After discarding the traps and calculations, the knowing destiny devil body, that returned to its original nature, showed a shocking combat power. The demonic Buddha was shocked and shocked. Being restricted by the extreme speed, the moment he attacked, his chi was already insufficient. It was difficult to resist the sword momentum. He lost every move and retreated step by step. The situation was getting more and more critical. At the same time, the dual spirit of the devil body clashed with each other, increasing the consumption. The shadow of the demon phoenix gradually faded, and the signs of dispersal became more and more obvious. In the stalemate battle, the Buddha of the demonic realm defended every move to protect his vital parts and exchanged injuries for time. On the other hand, the phoenix of the demonic realm was invincible with a sword in hand. Every move was to kill. The extremely fast sword competed with time. The strongest devil and Buddha of the world were fighting at the peak. The sword was above the wind and clouds, and the Buddha spirit on the palm created terrifying waves. Everywhere they passed, the entire demonic valley collapsed. Just as the demonic Buddha's defeat was irreversible, the killing body with the demonic tribulation suddenly staggered. His body shook violently and showed signs of dispersal. Seeing this, the demonic Buddha's eyes shone brightly. In this short gap, he used all his strength to hit the demonic Buddha's chest. With a bang, Qi Lian blocked the palm. Ning Chun retreated a few feet, and a trace of red flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Knowing destiny, Marquis, even the heavens want to kill you. Today you will lose. With a furious roar, the demonic Buddha raised his origin technique. Boundless Buddha light shone on the world. His strongest move appeared. Sumara Dharma devouring Bodhi, Buddha of the demonic realm, and Buddha of the demonic realm, appeared in the Buddha light. A huge demonic chi appeared in the world and shook the world. As expected, in terms of swordsmanship, I am still not as good as senior. Leaders, help me. There was a clear gap in swordsmanship. It was difficult to surpass the boundary of cultivation. Ningchen said calmly. Then he clenched his left hand and Taisher appeared. The two swords crossed. In the endless light, the yin-yang formation was opened. The rolling black and red waves drowned the demonic valley. In the sky, the Tai Chi formation appeared. The yin-yang brilliance lit up the dark sky. Ha! At the same time, the 49 Taoist leaders shouted and worked together. Their powerful soul power merged into the formation to help knowing destiny and increased the power of the yin-yang formation. Demonic technique, heaven's tears. The last move pierced through the sky and earth. Endless sword pressure spread out with the power of yin and yang. The mountains collapsed and changed. The battle at the peak was about to end. The undercurrent stole the light of the world. The ultimate moves of the demonic realm and the demonic realm clashed. The rumbling shook the world. The demonic valley, which used to be full of vitality, turned into a land of death under the collision of the two extremes. Not even a blade of grass grew. After the dust dispersed, a person stood on the peak. His black clothes were dyed red and drops of blood slid down his sword. On the other side, the demonic Buddha knelt down silently. Suddenly, a sword chi exploded from his throat. Blood spurted out like a tide and covered his eyes. The staff was broken. The demonic cultivator's soul was scattered. The unbelievable result. And the trap had cost him his life. I am not willing. His last words echoed in the valley. In the next moment, his head flew high and landed on the ground. Chapter 589. The demonic Buddha was defeated and the battle ended. Ningchen walked forward with his sword and took the demonic Buddha's head. He looked at the demonic temple in the mountains and stepped into it. After a while, the huge temple rumbled. Not long after, the demon rushed out and waved his sword. A sword that spanned hundreds of feet fell from the sky. There was a loud bang and the earth shook. In the demonic temple, the mountains moved and boulders fell like rain. The ancient temple fell. In just a few breaths, the ancient sect that had been passed down for thousands of years was completely history. The demonic temple was destroyed and buried in countless rubble. The demon did not stay any longer. He stepped into the air and headed west. At the same time, outside the divine palace, the battle between the two had reached the most critical moment. The difference in cultivation was gradually revealed. As the moves collided, the residual energy was difficult to dissipate. Blood dripped from the corner of Bai Yunlian's mouth. She was obviously injured. However, the promise to stop the enemy could not be retreated. Bai Yunlian had not been in the world for long, and the humans she came into contact with the most were knowing destiny state. The word promise was engraved in her heart. On the other side, although the divine palace master had the absolute advantage, the longer the battle was delayed, the more uneasy he felt. Seeing that the opponent was not retreating, Zi Tiangong flipped his right hand, and a vast amount of purple gas rushed from all directions. He threw out a palm with all his strength. Bai Yunlian received the attack, and the water dragons around her dissipated. Her blue robe was dyed red, and she flew dozens of feet away. Give up your life. Zi Tiangong took a step forward, and his palm was filled with killing intent. He threw a fatal blow at the severely injured white dragon. At this moment, the 9 heavens phoenix cried and flames burned the sky. The fire phoenix descended and a red robe appeared. The Taisher sword appeared and blocked the former's attack. Marquis Jiming. Zi Tiangong's expression changed as he looked at the newcomer. Ning Chen pushed the person in front of him away and looked at the girl behind him. He said, "Miss Bai, your injuries are not light. Leave the rest to me." "Be careful," Bai Yunlian replied. Then, she took a step forward and quickly retreated from the battle. After the white dragon left, Ning Chen looked at the divine palace master in front of him and said coldly, "Zi Tiangong, the demonic Buddha has gone to the west. It's your turn now." Zi Tiangong heard this and was shocked. He thought of the demonic Buddha asking for help, and his uneasiness rose to the extreme. "Very high heavens, are you satisfied with this body?" Ning Chen asked calmly. "Yes," the 49 men and women said in unison. "If that's the case, please help knowing destiny to fight against the enemy." As he spoke, Ning Chen released part of the control over his body to accommodate the consciousness of the very high heavens. Instantly, the consciousnesses of the 49 Taoist leaders fused into the devil's body and reached a new peak. With their consciousnesses coexisting, the 49 Taoist leaders assisted knowing destiny. Taisher swung his sword. The sword radiance was like a tidal wave as it slashed towards the former. It was a completely different sword momentum. Purple Sky Palace took the blow and retreated several steps with a bang. His face was gloomy. "You are not Jiming Marquis. Who are you?" Zi Tiangong asked coldly. "We are from the very high heavens." The 49 people replied. "The air of a gentleman." A cacophony of voices rang out once more. The sword missed on the Taisher sword roared and tore through the air. Zi Tiangong's expression froze. His palm condensed the raging torrents in all directions. Purple chi was vast and mighty, blocking Ling's sword missed. With a loud shake, the divine palace master was forced back several steps. In a frontal exchange, he was actually at a disadvantage. Man follows earth follows heaven follows Tao, and Tao follows nature. After one move, the Taisher sword in the very high heavens hands spun once more. The Taoist secret technique was activated, and the power of heaven and earth in the surroundings gathered continuously. The sword radiance was like the might of heaven, and a frightening pressure quickly spread out. Purple chi from the east, divine martial Dharma idol. Seeing that the incoming attack was extraordinary, Zi Tiangong also activated his martial arts. With a flip of his palm, a divine martial Dharma idol appeared in the human world. The only god in the human world has always been the netherworld king. Your god is nothing but an illusion. The very high heavens spoke, and Taisher slashed down. In an instant, the sword radiance fell, drawing a dazzling rainbow across the horizon. One sword destroyed the fake god. A fresh blood splattered, dyeing the horizon red. Zi Tiangong was forced back several steps, and blood flowed out from his left shoulder. Retreat! The situation was unfavorable, and Zi Tiangong was unwilling to continue fighting. He stepped on the ground and quickly retreated. Dao Chang Wuming. A strange light flashed in the very high heaven's eyes. His figure swept out and instantly blocked in front of Zi Tiangong. Taisher condensed his Dao energy and slashed down. With a loud bang, Zi Tiangong was forced back several steps. His face became darker and darker. What a troublesome fellow. Seeing the divine palace behind him from the corner of his eye, Zi Tiangong made up his mind. With a deep roar, he absorbed the energy into his qi. Majestic purple qi gathered from all directions. In an instant, the divine palace trembled. Below, the power of the earth surged and rushed to the sky. Purple qi controls the wind. Amidst the rumbling, a palm condensed from the power of the earth surged and roared. Its might shook the world, and the world cried out. Human Dao is insignificant. The very high heavens pointed at the sword, and the green light on the sword rose rapidly. The Taoism's legendary technique had appeared in the human world. As the two techniques collided, the space collapsed. Heaven and earth within 100 miles shook violently. As the aftershock came, the very high heavens' feet slid back several feet before they stabilized themselves. On the other side, after the aftershock, there was still no one. The divine palace master took the opportunity to escape. What a pity! The 49 men and women spoke with slight regret. Zi Tiangong is slightly stronger than the demonic Buddha. It won't be easy to kill him. Let's find another opportunity. Ning Chun retracted control of his body and said calmly. That's the only way. The 49 men replied. Ning Chun leaped into the divine palace. Not long after he walked out. His body flashed, and he flew in the direction where the white flood dragon left. Half an hour later, the two of them met up and rushed towards the central region together. When the moon set and the sun rose, Ning Chun returned to Competitive Edge City. He did not hide his whereabouts, and directly walked towards the conference hall. In the conference hall, after hearing that Jinming had returned, the honorables gathered. Their expressions were unnatural. Military advisor. When Ning Chun entered the conference hall, the honorables stood up and greeted him politely. No need to be so courteous. Have a seat. Ning Chun acted as if he did not remember what happened the day before. He walked forward and said, on the main seat. Zhao Liusu looked at the honorables below. The corner of her mouth curved into a cold smile, but she did not say anything. I'm here to tell you two things. First, the Heavenly Sword Sovereign has entered the ascending immortal stage. Second, the demonic Buddha is dead, and the demonic temple is destroyed. Ning Chun said lightly. Hearing this, the honorables were shocked. They had already guessed that the Heavenly Sword Sovereign had entered the ascending immortal stage, but they knew nothing about the demonic Buddha's death. In these 2 days, the Heavenly Sword Sovereign had not stepped out of Tianhing City. Then, there was only one person who did this, the Marquis of Jinming. However, was the Marquis of Jinming's strength really that strong? Ning Chun did not care about what the honorables thought. He continued, now that I've finished, there is one more thing I want to ask you. Do you want peace? Honorable Li Shan's eyes narrowed. He said, military advisor, the peace talks have ended. Is the Heavenly Sword Sovereign going back on his word? The heavens and earth bear witness to the oath of a martial artist. If they want to go back on their word, I think they should be prepared to bear the punishment of the heavens, Honorable Xianzhen said coldly. Ning Chun smiled faintly and said, I understand. Everyone, can you leave and let me have a few words with the Alliance Master? The honorables agreed, and left one after another, leaving the two of them alone. Military advisor, where is the Violet Palace? Zhao Liusu asked. It escaped. Ning Chun replied. What a pity. Zhao Liusu sighed softly. I'm very curious. Who was the target of the arrow 2 days ago? Ning Chun said calmly. Military advisor, what do you think? Zhao Liusu smiled. I don't know either. However, putting aside the unexpected appearance of the 11th sword, based on the situation at that time, The Alliance Master's position really had a decisive effect. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, "Oh, please elaborate." Zhao Liusu's eyes flashed with a strange light. "It's very simple. The Alliance Master's arrow was aimed at me. In the situation at that time, the knowing destiny state would not be able to escape. If it was aimed at the human demon Buddha, or the Violet Palace, I think it would be difficult for them to trap me. Unfortunately, the appearance of the 11th sword made it difficult for me to determine the Alliance Master's position." Ningchen replied, "Military advisor, you are too modest. I think that even without the 11th sword, it would not be easy for the two of them to kill you. Similarly, my arrow could only be used as icing on the cake or adding insult to injury. It could not have played a decisive role," Zhao Liusu said. "That's why the Alliance Master did not shoot the arrow." Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, "Perhaps. Military advisor should know that after the peace talks between the two realms, there are many people in the 5 regions who want to take the opportunity to get rid of you. One more or one less does not affect you much. My actions at that time were just following the wishes of the people." Zhao Liusu smiled. "Zhao Liusu, you have really grown up. You are no longer the simple-minded little girl." Ningchen stood up and sighed. "You flatter me. Didn't you also say that experience is the best teacher in life?" Zhao Liusu replied. "When did it start?" Ningchen asked again. "When the butterfly in the flower came back for revenge." Zhao Liusu replied. Ningchen was silent. After a moment, he nodded and walked out of the hall. After the knowing destiny state left, several human sovereigns entered the hall again. Xianzhen's sovereign walked forward and asked in confusion, "Alliance Master, what is the purpose of the knowing destiny Marquis visit?" After what happened the day before, although they had not completely broken off with the knowing destiny Marquis, their cooperation was already in name only. The purpose of the knowing destiny Marquis visit was really puzzling. "I have already told you why he came. I think there is nothing you don't understand," Zhao Liusu said faintly. Xianzhen's sovereign frowned slightly. Just to talk about the Tianfu sword sovereign and the demonic Buddha. There was still that meaningless question? Zhao Liusu did not say anything more. Different people had different thoughts. To the knowing destiny state, this important question was just a meaningless question in the eyes of the other sovereigns. People who walked different paths could not work together. From today onwards, the rise and fall of the Central Plains and the other 3 regions had nothing to do with the knowing destiny state. In Wuxia Palace, Ningchen walked over. Looking at the little girl who was sitting in front of the hall and waiting in boredom, he showed a gentle smile and said, "Ina." Ina looked up and saw who it was. She jumped up and pouted. "Why are you only back now? I have been waiting for a day." "Sorry, I was delayed by some things. Let's go," Ningchen said apologetically. "Okay." Ina quickly ran forward and grabbed his sleeve and left with him. "Did you have a falling out with those people?" Ina asked on the way. "Yes, let me teach you something. Idiocy is contagious. In the future, stay away from them," Ningchen said softly. "Okay," Ina replied obediently. Chapter 590. In the northwest of the Central Plains, within the Swordmaster's study, Jiming had been inside for over an hour and hadn't come out. Just as Ina was getting impatient, the door opened and Ningchen walked out. "Let's go," Grandpa Swordmaster agreed. Asked Ina as she walked. "Yes." Ningchen nodded. "What else did Grandpa Swordmaster say?" Asked Ina. "He told you to be obedient. If you don't obey, I can beat you or scold you," smiled Ningchen. "You're lying. Grandpa Swordmaster would never say something like that." Ina pouted in disbelief. "Huh?" Ningchen chuckled. "Have you said goodbye to your mother?" "Yes," Ina responded, her expression unconsciously becoming somewhat downcast. Ningchen rubbed her hair. "Study hard. You'll be back soon." "Yes." Ina nodded her head vigorously and replied. The two of them left the Swordmaster's manor. Behind them, a beautiful woman walked out. Her eyes were filled with tears as she watched her daughter leave. Although she was reluctant, she forced herself to not say anything. In the distance, Ningchen didn't look back, but he could still feel the gaze behind him. He couldn't help but sigh. Within the study, The sword master looked into the distance. He was old and needed someone to inherit the position of sword master. Yin, who had undergone the phoenix blood, was undoubtedly the best candidate. But before that, Yin needed someone to lead her. For the sword master and the sword master to be willing to accept this was a blessing for Yin and the sword master's manner. In terms of accomplishments in the sword, there were very few people in the world who could surpass the sword master. The most commendable thing was that the sword master was more open-minded than anyone he had ever seen. He wasn't the slightest bit stingy when it came to passing down martial arts. In the Central Plains, where sects were strict, this was unimaginable. In this world, there are quite a few top techniques, but the number of true experts can be counted on one's fingers. Compared to external factors, internal factors are the key to a person's martial arts attainment. So there's no need to be so rigid about sections. Jiming's words were still echoing in his ears. Swordsmith Manor sighed. He knew that Jiming Marquis had given Yin a heavenly book. This was a great kindness. It meant that Swordsmith Manor would have heavenly book martial arts from now on. It was not until today that he understood why the Marquis of Jiming, who had ordinary talent, had such amazing martial arts achievements. It was not because of the tomes of arcane, nor was it because of the legend of the Xia dynasty, but because of his temperament. Knowing how to repay kindness, treating people with sincerity, doing everything with all one's strength. Knowing Destiny Marquis may have regrets in his life, but he has a clear conscience. Casting Sword pushed the wheelchair out of the study and looked out of the villa. Light flashed in his eyes. If possible, he really wanted to see what kind of person Empress Zhangsun, who was said to have brought up Marquis Jiming, was. On the road to the east, Yin tugged at the sleeve of the person beside her and asked curiously, "Ningchen, where are we going?" "Eastern Divine Prefecture," Ningchen replied softly. "Oh," Yin responded and asked, "Why are you going to the eastern region?" "To confirm some things," Ningchen replied. "When are you coming back?" Yin continued to ask. "Soon," Ningchen replied. The time he had agreed to with the sword venerate was only 10 days. 3 days had already passed, and there were only 7 days left. He had to hurry up. "When are you going to teach me how to cultivate?" Yin asked again. "Haven't I already taught you?" Ningchen said. "It's too difficult." "I don't understand," Yin pouted. "Just cultivate. We'll talk about it when there's a problem," Ningchen said casually. "How can there be a master like you?" Yin was extremely dissatisfied. "You've seen it now. You have to rely on yourself to learn martial arts. If it's too easy, it won't be good," Ningchen replied. "You're just finding excuses for your irresponsibility," Yin complained angrily. The two of them traveled east. With Yin, Ningchen slowed down a lot. When they arrived at the Eastern Divine Prefecture, it was already noon of the second day. 100 miles to the west of the former Eternal Night Sect's ruins, there was a towering tower. The 5 regions had merged for more than 20 years, and the tower had long been abandoned and damaged. Ningchen pulled the little girl into the pagoda and carefully looked at the structure of the pagoda. Back when the Divine Prefecture had been pulled into the 4 regions realm, the calamity of the Nether King had just subsided. The Divine Prefecture's vitality had been greatly damaged, and he had been heavily injured and unconscious. He had already obtained the construction method of the 4 Directions Divine Tower from the Demon Temple and Divine Palace. However, in order to determine its authenticity, he had to personally verify it. At sunset, Ningchen left the pagoda and headed south with Yin. Just as Ningchen returned to the Eastern Divine Prefecture, the situation between the Central Divine Prefecture, Heavenly Mansion, and the Alliance was becoming more and more tense. Chao Tianxi had been ambushed by an inner realm sovereign on the day of the peace talks, and he had been heavily injured. Such a despicable act had completely angered the Heavenly Mansion's army. In just a few days, it was becoming harder and harder to suppress the calls for war. It was only a matter of time before war broke out. Within Eternal Heaven City, Mu Chang'e stood in front of the city, his black robes fluttering in the wind. Within an earth flame divine furnace, the heavenly tower was being reforged. The Holy Land's last bit of Star Soul essence had been fused into the sword, increasing its strength. "Sword Venerate," An azure-robed elder respectfully bowed. Old one, when will the heavenly tower be completed? Muchanga asked. 7 more days, the azure-robed elder replied. Muchanga nodded. Now whether they would fight or make peace, they would have to wait for the Jiming Marquis reply. In the northern part of the central divine prefecture, in Jingfeng City, all the sovereigns had gathered. The seriousness on their faces was difficult to conceal. Zhao Liusu sat in the main seat and looked at the sovereigns below with a mocking smile. One miscalculation had led to a bitter taste of his own medicine. No one could have predicted that the heavenly mansion's sword venerate would awaken. The sovereigns thought that after killing Chao Tianqi, the heavenly mansion's army wouldn't dare to fight, due to the punishment of breaking their oath. They didn't think that they would end up in the most dangerous situation. The heavenly mansion's sword venerate had stepped onto the path of celestial ascension, and the military advisor had left. The inner realm situation was precarious. The heavenly mansion's sovereigns should still be worried about the punishment of breaking their oath. It's impossible that they haven't made a move yet, said Sovereign Xianzhen. Hearing this, the sovereigns felt less uneasy. No one wanted to face a swordsman who had stepped on the immortal path. On the main seat, Zhao Liusu smiled faintly and ruthlessly destroyed the sovereign's excuses. Although the punishment of the heavens is terrifying, it's not impossible for a sovereign to withstand it. I think the real reason why the heavenly mansion has been waiting until now isn't the punishment of the heavens, but the military advisor. Why? Sovereign Li Shan didn't understand and asked. The day before yesterday, the military advisor came and asked if you all wanted peace. Unfortunately, no one answered directly, Zhao Liusu said faintly. The sovereigns frowned. What did she mean? Zhao Liusu didn't explain further. She closed her eyes and pondered quietly. In the eastern region, south of the barbarian dynasty, Ning Chun walked out of the second tower and headed east with Ener. How many towers like this are there? Ener asked. 4, Ning Chun replied. What's the use of it? Ener didn't understand. Back then, the masters of the Divine Palace and the Demon Temple used the 4 towers and the power of the Divine Prefecture's ley lines to pull the eastern region back to the 4 regions, Ning Chun replied. Oh, Ener nodded and said honestly, I still don't understand. Do you know why Heaven's Sanctum and the Inner Realm are at war? Ning Chun asked softly. I don't know. Ener shook her head. To survive. Ning Chun sighed. I've been to Heaven's Sanctum planet before. It's a very beautiful land, but it's about to be destroyed. When Ener heard this, she couldn't bear it and said, since those sovereigns can come to the inner realm, they can also bring the people of Heaven's Sanctum. Why must they invade us? You're still young and haven't experienced much. Human nature is much more complicated than you think. Ning Chun rubbed the little girl's hair and said, the resources of a single star are limited. Even if it's enough to accommodate a few more Heaven's Sanctum, the various sects won't be willing to let others touch what's theirs. In order to survive, Heaven's Sanctum only has 2 choices: to join the inner realm or to launch an invasion. At this point, Ning Chen's eyes flashed, and he said, joining the inner realm means that your fate is in the hands of others. In layman's terms, it's selling yourself as a slave. The fate of the people of Heaven's Sanctum can be imagined. Therefore, Heaven's Sanctum only has one choice, and that is to invade. Then who's right and who's wrong? Ener was a little confused. There's no right or wrong, only a standpoint. Chao Tianqi didn't hesitate to sacrifice himself for the people of Heaven's Sanctum. In the hearts of the people of Heaven's Sanctum, he's a true hero. However, for the inner realm, the Heaven's Sanctum star venerables are enemies. Standing in different positions, one's judgment of right and wrong is different. However, no matter what the goal is, war itself is definitely wrong. Because the people who truly bear the flames of war are never the decision-makers of war, but the people of the world. Ning Chun said word by word. Rise the people suffer. Fall the people suffer. This was an eternal truth, but it was also the most nonsense that no one paid attention to. 20 years ago, Fan Linghua led his troops down south. He wanted to conquer the Great Xia, and then unify the entire Divine Prefecture, establishing a prosperous era without war. However, the premise of all this was to reshuffle the forces of the Divine Prefecture, and the sacrifices involved were more than millions. He didn't know when the prosperous era of the divine prefecture would arrive, but he knew very well that what really decided all of this was not military force, but the hearts of the people. In the current situation, whether it was the divine prefecture or the other 4 regions, it was impossible to achieve. It could be said that the purpose of the underworld king's creation had failed. There were too few people like Chao Tianxi. It was the same in the inner realm and heaven's sanctum. Perhaps one day, the hearts of the people would no longer be like they were now. The world would return to peace, the people would be rich, and the prosperous era of the divine prefecture would truly arrive. Then, Fan Lingyue would be able to rest in peace. In the east of Barren City, Ningchen walked over and stepped into the divine pagoda. In Barren City, Jian Luiying, who had been guarding the city, felt a familiar sword pressure in the distance. His figure flashed, and he quickly rushed in the direction of the divine pagoda. Inside the divine pagoda, there was a familiar red robe and a familiar aura. Jian Luiying's body trembled, and he said in surprise, "Marquis Jiming." Ningchen turned around and looked at the person in front of him. A smile appeared on his face, and he said, "Jian-san, long time no see." Chapter 591. When old friends met, things remained the same, but people had changed. They had once faced each other in life and death, yet when they met again now, there was only emotion left. The enmity of the past had long since vanished along with the passage of time, and it no longer had any meaning. 20 years had passed, and Jian Luiying, whose temperament had changed, had also stepped onto the path of Xiantian. Although he was still a distance away from Sword 2 and the former Sword 1, he had already surpassed himself by too much. "Why are you here?" Jian Luiying didn't understand. "I've confirmed some things. The answers I want are in the 4 divine pagodas of the divine prefecture," Ningchen replied. Jian Luiying nodded and didn't probe further. He changed the topic and said, 10 years ago, Junior sister went to the other 4 regions to look for you. Did you meet?" When Ningchen heard this, his eyes narrowed as he slowly said, "No." After leaving for so many years, he had never heard any news about Mu Qingxue. He had always thought that she had stayed in the divine land. Jian Luiying sighed softly. It seemed that they had missed it again. "Jiming Marquis, cherish the people in front of you. You have already missed out on too much. If you don't cherish them, you will really be strangers," Jian Luiying advised seriously. "Thank you for your reminder. I'll keep it in mind," Ningchen said calmly. Looking at the former's expression, Jian Luiying was deeply moved. After going through so many things, had the two of them really drifted further and further apart? Ningchen thought for a moment and said, "Sword 3, if Sword 2 returns, can you help me tell him something?" "Oh, what is it?" Jian Luiying asked in surprise. "If I don't show up for the arranged battle between us within 3 months, it means that I'm unable to come. Tell him not to wait any longer," instructed Ningchen. Jian Luiying frowned and nodded, agreeing to the former's request. When the moon was high in the sky, Jian Luiying left the God Pagoda and returned to Barren City. The reunion of old friends after 20 years was simple and plain. Not long after, Ningchen also came out of the Divine Pagoda and headed north with Iner. "Ningchen, I'm tired," Iner said listlessly. "On my back?" Ningchen asked. "Okay." Iner nodded. Ningchen crouched down and carried the little girl on his back. They continued on their way. Iner laid on the former's back and hugged him tightly. Soon she fell asleep peacefully. Ningchen sighed. Over the past few days, the one who had suffered the most was this girl. She was always running around with him, and had never had a good rest. Under the night sky, the northbound red coat disappeared in a flash. It was so fast that it was hard to see it clearly. In the northern Ming royal court, east of the royal palace, upstream of the cold river, Ningchen appeared in front of the last square tower and walked in. 20 years had passed in the frigid ice divine tower, but not a single blade of grass grew around it. The construction of the 4 cardinal divine tower had forcefully absorbed the origin of heaven and earth, causing an unimaginable disaster to the divine great land. Ningchen stood inside the tower, looking at the structure of the divine tower. He reached out and touched it, Traces of cold air could be clearly felt. Even after 20 years, it still hadn't completely dissipated. Right at this moment, a small, fair hand reached out and touched the body of the tower. Seeing this, Ningchen reached out and slapped the little girl's hand away. He reprimanded her softly. Don't be naughty. This cold air might be dangerous. Oh. Ina retracted her hand and laid on the former's back. She curiously sized up the divine pagoda. This pagoda was the most complete of the 4 towers. It looked truly spectacular. The little girl didn't say anything, so Ningchen just let her be. He carefully examined each rune, and then verified it in his heart. These tadpole runes all look the same. Is there a difference? Ina felt dizzy. Yes. Ningchen nodded. Why can't I see it? Asked Ina. That's because you're stupid, said Ningchen casually. You're the stupid one, said Ina unhappily. Look carefully. In truth, each rune has a slight difference. They're not completely the same, reminded Ningchen softly. Ina raised her head and looked at the runes on the pagoda. After carefully comparing them, she finally found a slight difference. It's so complicated. Can you remember it? Asked Ina, as she rubbed her sore eyes. It's all right, said Ningchen. Amazing. Ina's eyes were filled with envy. I'll teach you in the future, said Ningchen softly. Okay, Ina replied obediently. When the sun rose and the moon set, Ningchen finished looking at all the runes on the pagoda and directly left. In the distance, the capital of northern Meng could be vaguely seen. The city of miracles in the desert was so beautiful under the morning sun. Ningchen only took a glance before leaving. He didn't stay for even a moment. In Tianjing City in Central Prefecture, the earthly fire divine furnace was listening to the rise and fall of the heavenly tower. The day of its completion was getting closer and closer. Not far away, Wuxia stood quietly and looked towards the north. Marquis, time is running out. What's your answer? In the homeland of Western Buddha, Ning Chun, who had rushed back, once again returned to the heaven's equal peak, where the demonic Buddha and the purple heavenly palace had pulled the divine prefecture back. He looked at the strange peak that had sunk for several days. Demon, you still can't figure it out? Asked the 49 people in unison. Ningchen nodded. Even with the help of the 4 directions divine pagoda, pulling the divine prefecture back to the eastern region from across a realm was an incredible feat. He couldn't understand how the demonic Buddha and the purple heavenly palace had done it. You've done well enough. However, there's a limit to human power. You can't predict everything, said the very high heavens calmly. Ningchen was silent. After a long time he sighed. If the phoenix body was here, perhaps I would know the answer. In terms of comprehension, I'm not as good as him. Perhaps there's another way, said the very high heavens. There's no time. Ningchen's eyes flashed. Not only was there no time in the inner realm, but there was also no time in the divine prefecture. He didn't know how long it would take to think of another way. Using only 2 peak supremes to move a region is indeed incredible. Now we can only try as soon as possible. Perhaps we can find the key, suggested the very high heavens. That's the only way. Ningchen nodded. His feet moved, and he rushed towards the east. In Tianjing City, the earthly fire divine furnace was at its final stage. Wuxia stood in front of the earthly fire divine furnace. His restrained sword intent was constantly vibrating. It was obvious that he couldn't suppress it anymore. The heavenly tower hummed softly. The peerless divine weapon was reborn. The sword hummed, as if it was asking its master to fight. Wait a little longer. Wuxia calmly said. The Marquis hadn't arrived yet. However, he believed that the Marquis wouldn't miss the appointment. At the last moment, 100 feet away from the earthly fire divine furnace, the Marquis, Wuxia turned around and looked at the young man in front of him. He said calmly, Marquis, the answer. The demonic Buddha is dead. Also, Ning Chun threw the demonic Buddha's head to the side and said seriously, there might be a way to protect the Tianfu star. Wuxia's eyes narrowed. He said slowly, please speak. Ning Chun explained the method in detail. He then continued, now the most important thing is to try to use the 4 corners divine tower as soon as possible. Also, we need to find traces of the purple sky palace and get him to tell us the key to the Four Corners Divine Tower. Wuchanga was silent. After a while he nodded. Thank you. I will arrange these two things. But before that, there is one more thing that must be done. Wuchanga turned around and walked to the earthly fire divine furnace. He held his sword and slowly pulled it out. In an instant the heavens and the earth froze. Boundless sword pressure spread out rapidly. Jiming Marquis, I promise that I won't hurt the people of the inner world anymore. However, the sovereigns of the various sects have gone too far. I can't take it anymore. Wuchanga jumped up. The heavenly imperial palace rotated. Sword chi filled the sky and shot into the sky. It was boundless and majestic. The world trembled. Sword. 11. With the sound of the 11th sword, thousands of crisscrossing sword lights broke through the air like meteors streaking across the 9 heavens. They flew toward the direction of Competitive Edge City. Sword chi fell like rain above the Hall of Venerables in Competitive Peak City. In an instant the hall collapsed. The Hall of Venerables, which represented the Alliance's prestige, was destroyed. This shocking sword shocked everyone in Zhongzhou. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with fear. In Tianheng City, Ningchen sighed. After the sword, the various sects in the inner world should wake up. After that sword, Wuchanga landed from the sky and said, Jiming Marquis, let's go. Ningchen nodded. He held Yiner's hand and walked toward the teleportation array. Dongxuan, Tiandu, Taixian, Junyang, come with us, ordered Wuchanga. Yes. The 4 supreme beings walked out and said respectfully. The 7 of them entered the array. Light constantly flashed. And in the blink of an eye, the 7 of them disappeared. On planet Tianfu, the light of the array flickered. 7 figures appeared and walked out of the array. I need to know the location of that large star, said Ningchen. Come with me. Wuchanga said, and walked towards the star Soul Life Sea. Sword Sovereign. A sovereign respectfully bowed in front of his star Soul Life Sea. 6 flowers, what's the situation? Asked Wuchanga. The 6 flowers venerate shook his head and sighed. It's a bit faster than expected. In at most 5 years, that star will collide with Tianfu star. Wuchanga frowned. Why is there such a difference in time? Isn't there still 8 years? It's hard to avoid errors in calculations. Before the 2 stars were far away, so it was hard to determine. Now that the distance is closer, the calculation is more accurate, explained the 6 flowers venerate. Wuchanga's eyes darkened. Is 5 years accurate? At most that's the case. There's no guarantee. It might be even less, said the 6 flowers venerate honestly. Ningchen stepped forward and looked at the big stars in his star Soul Life Sea. He narrowed his eyes and said, Sword Venerable, if Tianxiang used all his strength, how long would it take to set up a teleportation array that could cross 2 stars? If we prepare it in advance, it'll take a month. With the current situation, it'll take at least 3 months, said Wuchanga. That's too long. Ningchen looked at Wuchanga. I need at least 3 of these teleportation formations. Adding on the time it takes to build the 4-direction divine tower, there's no time to test it. Each teleportation formation must be set up within a month. Wuchanga's expression turned serious. After a long time he said, All right, I'll find the things you need as soon as possible. You don't need to worry about the formation. I'll do my best. However, I'll leave the matter of the 4-direction divine tower to you. Chapter 592. The great star sped through the starry sky, leaving behind a dazzling streak of light as it headed straight for the Tianfu planet. Time had become the biggest problem for the Tianfu planet. In the Tianfu sacred land, Ningchen calculated the distance and height of the 4 directions divine towers day and night. Wuchanga, Tiandu, Taixian, and the other sovereigns were constantly searching for divine materials. In the central plains, Xiao Bieli returned to the Tianfu planet after handing over the command of the 2 armies. The strategists of the 2 realms were working together for the first time to face the most difficult situation in the world. The strongest experts and the strongest martial force were gathered together for the sake of the Tianfu planet and the peace of the world. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Mu Chang'e returned and handed over the divine materials to Tian Xiang before leaving once more. He carried the heavenly tower on his back. One could faintly smell the blood qi on the sword. It was clear that even someone as strong as the Tianfu sword sovereign hadn't obtained these divine materials easily. There were forbidden lands in the human world that were filled with danger. Divine materials were hard to find. Only these forbidden lands had a chance of surviving. Tian Xiang, let's go. Ningchen glanced at Xiaobieli, who stood not too far away, and spoke. Yes. Xiaobieli nodded. Dong Sun, Tiandu, Taixian, and Jinyang walked out as well. They were prepared to leave at any moment. Iner, let's go. Ningchen held the hand of the girl beside him and stepped into the air. Behind him, the 5 sovereigns followed. The path through the starry sky was boundless. Ningchen and the 5 sovereigns were fighting against the heavens as they quickly flew toward the life star in the distance. 6 dazzling lights streaked across the starry sky. Mortals couldn't travel in the starry sky without spiritual qi. Even sovereigns could get lost forever. It was extremely dangerous. Ningchen used his phoenix origin to protect Yin by his side. He walked at the front and chased after the life star. 3 months later, a huge star appeared in front of them. It was blue and green. It was so beautiful. How beautiful. Yin's eyes were filled with praise. Don't run around when you reach this star. Stay by my side. Do you understand? Said Ningchen softly. Yes. Yin obediently replied. As soon as the 7 of them entered the vast planet, they felt a heavy pressure assaulting their bodies. Their bodies felt as heavy as a mountain, and they quickly fell to the ground. Drink! With a light shout. The multicolored light shone brightly as he circulated his martial arts. The 7 of them stopped falling and landed safely. After landing on the ground, Ningchen held the little girl's hand and channeled his phoenix qi into her body to help her resist the terrifying gravity on the planet. Tian Xiang, prepare the array formation. I'll go take a look elsewhere. Ningchen said. Then he held Yin's hand and walked towards the east of the great star. Where are we going? Yin kicked a small stone as she walked and asked. Take a look at the landscape of this planet, Ningchen replied. Oh, said Yin. After walking for a while, Ningchen stopped and turned his palm. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth gathered rapidly, forming a vortex that was 100 feet long. It was so powerful that even Tian Xiang and the others in the distance could not help but look sideways. After a while, the spiritual qi dispersed. Ningchen stopped and thought for a while. He looked at the little girl beside him and said, Yin, the spiritual qi here is much denser than in the inner realm. It's good for your cultivation. Can you walk on your own? Okay. Yin nodded obediently. She let go of the former's hand and tried to walk on her own. The moment she let go, the pressure increased several times. The little girl staggered and almost fell to the ground. After stabilizing her body with great difficulty, Yin pursed her lips and gritted her teeth to walk forward. Ningchen followed beside her. While observing the surrounding landscape, he also paid careful attention to the little girl's situation. The great star was vast and lush. However, after walking for a long time, he did not see any signs of other life. This made Ningchen secretly sigh in relief. If this was also a great star of life like the heavenly mansion, then things would be really troublesome. Fortunately, this planet seemed to be just a primitive great star of life. There were not many other life forms that had evolved. After observing for over 10 days, Ningchen confirmed that there were no humans on this planet. Then he brought Yin back to the place where they had first descended. More than half of the formation had been set up. Ningchen looked at the 4 sovereigns and said, Everyone, I will give you the method to construct the 4 corners divine tower in detail. Remember, you must not make any mistakes. Understood. The 4 sovereigns nodded seriously. 7 days later, the 4 sovereigns each left with the method to construct the 4 corners divine towers. They began to construct the 4 corners divine towers. Waiting was always a long time. 10 days later, the teleportation formation was set up. Ningchen and Xiao Libi stood outside, patiently waiting for the 4 corners divine towers to be completed. Another month passed. When a third of the 4 corners divine towers had been completed, Xiao Libi entered the formation and left to deal with the next matter. Ning Chun was still outside the array formation, waiting for the 4 symbols divine pagoda to be completed. Not far away, Ener was walking back and forth unsteadily. Her beautiful little face was wrinkled, and her mouth was muttering something. An hour later, Ener stopped and shouted at the distant Ning Chun. Ning Chun, 5,000 steps is enough. Another 5,000 steps. Ning Chun casually replied. Ener's mouth curled. She was extremely unwilling, but she still obediently started from the beginning. On the 3rd month, the 4 corners divine towers were completed. The ground trembled, and origin energy poured into the towers. It was a shocking sight. Ener. Ning Chun sensed the 4 corners divine towers aura and called out. When Ener heard this, she quickly ran over. Her nimble steps were completely different from 3 months ago. Ning Chun led her into the formation and returned to the heavenly sanctum. Within the heavenly sanctum's sacred lands, the formation lit up. Ning Chun walked out and looked at Xiao Libi and the Sword Sovereign. The 4 corners divine towers have been completed. How are the preparations here? They're all ready, replied Xiao Libi. Let's go. Ning Chun nodded. The 4 of them entered the formation once more. Light flickered, and the 4 of them vanished without a trace. In the starry sky, the 4 of them appeared on a desolate star that formed a triangle with the heavenly sanctum and the nameless life star. They walked out of the formation. This star's size isn't inferior to that life star. It should be able to withstand the power of moving it, said Xiao Libi seriously. Ning Chun looked around and nodded. Let's begin. With that, Ning Chun led Ener away, giving the other 2 space to move. Mu Chang'e and Xiao Libi looked at each other and circulated their cultivation to activate the 4 corners curse. Immediately, a powerful aura soared into the sky. At the same time, the 4 corners divine towers were drawn by the curse. Boundless energy surged out and shot towards the desolate star. Ha! With a deep sound, the ground beneath their feet crumbled. Pieces of earth flew everywhere. The energy of heaven and earth connected to the life star, changing its direction. At the most crucial moment, Ning Chun narrowed his eyes and watched every bit of energy change. To the side, Ener also became nervous. She knew that this matter concerned the peace between the 2 realms. They couldn't afford any mistakes. On the desolate star, a treading immortal and a human sovereign were borrowing the power of the 4 corners divine towers to move the star. Blood dyed their clothes red. The backlash was so strong that even sovereigns and treading immortals found it hard to endure. In the distance, Ning Chun looked at the 2 of them with a grave expression. Leaders, lend me a hand. With that, Ning Chun's figure flashed and appeared behind the 2 of them. He condensed his energy and inserted it into their bodies. Man follows the earth follows the heaven follows the Tao, Tao follows nature. The 49 leaders of the Taoist sects activated their techniques at the same time. Boundless soul power surged into the bodies of Sword Sovereign and Tian Xiang. With the 4 of them working together, a shocking pulling force burst out. At the same time, on the life star far away, the heaven and earth shook and a slight shift appeared. The 4 corners divine towers showed their might and devoured the origin energy of heaven and earth. They moved the life star slowly towards the desolate star. In the shocking energy, heaven and earth shook violently. Fire spewed out from the ground and rain poured down. The shocking scene was like the end of the world. However, at this moment a change occurred. On the life star, boundless power of law appeared and protected the life star, repelling all external forces. In an instant, on the desolate star, the 4 of them groaned. Blood splattered and dyed the life star red. Ning Chun. Seeing this, Ener's expression changed. She quickly ran forward with an anxious expression. Ugh! The power of the 4 corners divine towers backfired. Ning Chun, Xiaobieli, and Mu Chang'e staggered and vomited. Their bodies were injured, but they couldn't suppress the pain of failure. The heavenly palace's sword saint and Tian Xiang's eyes flashed with sadness, and they vomited another mouthful of blood. Heavens, do you really want to destroy the heavenly palace? Xiaobieli looked at the sky and clenched his fists. Why? What did the heavenly palace do wrong? Mu Chang'e stood up and looked at the red-robed young man. He said, knowing fate, Marquis, we have done what we should. Sorry, we don't have much time left. We can't wait any longer. From today onwards, the war will begin again. With that, Mu Chang'e stepped into the array and disappeared. Sorry, Xiao Bieli apologized as well. And then he turned around and walked into the formation. Seeing the two leave, Ningchen sighed. He held Yiner's hand and walked into the array. In the next moment, the two figures, one big and one small, disappeared. The entire desolate planet was left with only the scarlet ground and the desolation. In the inner world, the flames of war reignited. The heavenly palace kept their promise and didn't harm the people of the inner world. All of their forces were directed at the Alliance army. Tian Xiang, who returned to the battlefield, personally led the army to the north. Mountains and rivers were flattened one after another. The heavenly palace displayed their terrifying array skills. In the Battle of the Plain Pass, 30% of the forces of the various sects were buried. The situation in the central continent was instantly in danger. At the same time the war restarted, the punishment of breaking the oath came as promised. 40% of the 23 human sovereigns of the heavenly palace died overnight. Heavenly fire lit up the entire central continent. In Tianheng City, Mu Chang'e looked at the fallen sovereigns of the heavenly palace. His eyes flashed with sadness. A moment later he bowed respectfully. If there is an afterlife, I hope that the sovereigns won't be burdened by the flames of war. Chapter 593. The situation in the central region changed, and the Heaven's Mansion army, who had no way out, rushed north at all costs. Because of the agreement with Jiming, the Heaven's Mansion army had chosen a barren land as the battlefield to minimize the harm to the people of the realm. However, the battle between the Xiantian realm armies was too destructive. Although the casualties of the people of the inner world were much lower than before, the destruction of the mountains and rivers was several times greater than before. Piece after piece of land collapsed. Especially after the human sovereigns who had the power to move mountains and seas intervened. The central region was destroyed even more severely. Many mountains and rivers were turned into wastelands. After Tianfa, the number of Heaven's Mansion sovereigns was greatly reduced, and they were no match for the Inner World Alliance. However, the existence of the Heaven's Mansion Sword Sovereign directly closed the gap in strength, and even made the Heaven's Mansion army stronger. The flames of war continued to spread to the north, and one sect after another was destroyed by the Heaven's Mansion army. The pace of invading the central region was getting faster and faster. Hong Yi appeared on the shattered mountains and rivers with a little girl beside him. Her delicate face was filled with worry. "I'm fine," Ningchen said, but the aura around him shook violently. The demonic tribulation affected his injured body, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Seeing this, Yiner couldn't hide the worry on her face. She stopped and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Her heart ached as she said, "Let's not care anymore. Let the Heaven's Mansion army and the Alliance army fight for themselves." Ningchen smiled tiredly and said softly, "Yiner, I'll teach you one more thing. As a person you must keep your word. We can't control what others do, but you must protect your own heart." It was ridiculous for him, a demon, to preach to Yiner. However, he didn't want to see the little girl walk down the wrong path. Hearing this, Yiner's eyes flashed with pity. She said, "Why can they not keep their promise? Should good people work hard?" Ningchen reached out his hand and stroked the little girl's hair. He sighed softly and said, "Yiner, don't be blinded by the things in front of you. There are too many unfair things around everyone. Before you're strong enough to change all of this, you should first stick to your own heart. Remember, from the very beginning, everything you've done has never been for the sake of showing off to others. Because how they are is not important." Yiner was silent for a moment, then she nodded and asked, "Ningchen, why are you doing this?" "Promise with someone." Ningchen paused and slowly said, "He cares, so I have to do my best. But now that things have come to this, is there still a chance for the Heaven's Sanctum to turn around?" Yiner asked worriedly. Ningchen stopped and looked towards the west. "I'm just thinking. Yiner, your big sister Bai is here." Before he finished speaking, the void swirled and the dragon gate appeared. A beautiful figure in blue walked out and looked at the two people in front of her. There was a slight change in her eyes that were as beautiful as stars. "You're injured?" Bai Yunlian narrowed his eyes and asked. "No problem. What's the matter, Miss Bai?" Ning Chen asked. "Now that there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Let's meet again if fate wills it." After saying that, Bai Yunlian turned around and walked into the dragon gate behind him. "Hold on." A wisp of a serious expression flashed across Ning Chen's face as he said, "Miss Bai, are you preparing to make a move against Supreme Subhoodie?" Bai Yunlian stopped and said calmly, "Yes, Yao Qiluo and the countless living beings in the primordial lands cannot die in vain. Can't you wait a few more days?" Ning Chen asked seriously. Bai Yunlian was silent for a moment before saying, "With the help of the demon sealing pagoda, Supreme Subhoodie's injuries are recovering faster and faster. Once he fully recovers, no one in the Supremacy realm will be able to kill him. We can't wait any longer." "Big sister Bai," Ener called out, her face filled with worry. Bai Yunlian looked at the little girl, and a rare gentleness appeared on her beautiful face. She said softly, "Ener, take good care of your big brother Ning. We'll meet again if fate wills it." Perhaps the heavens truly didn't want the Yao race to exist. At this critical moment, the only person who could help her, knowing destiny, was heavily injured. "White Flood Dragon." Ning Chen took a step forward and shouted. A huge phoenix image appeared behind him, and in the next moment, the phoenix let out a soft cry. A river of weak water surged out of the phoenix's body and turned into a waterfall that coiled around the two of them. This weak water comes from the yellow springs of the underworld. It can resist the Buddhist's clear saint force. "Take it with you. It might be of some help to you," said Ning Chen. This was originally the trump card he had prepared to use against the Heaven's Sanctum army. He hadn't expected things to change, and he hadn't used it. Today, he had given it to the White Flood Dragon. "Many thanks." Bai Yunlian didn't refuse. Looking at the river in the sky, she waved her hand and put it away. "White Flood Dragon, don't let anything happen to you no matter what. Only by living can there be hope," said Ning Chen solemnly. Bai Yunlian nodded and didn't say anything else. She walked into the dragon gate and disappeared. "Ning Chen, nothing will happen to big sister Bai, right?" asked Ener worriedly as she pulled on his hand. "Nothing." Ning Chen shook his head and looked northwest. A moment later he said, "Let's go to the Golden Buddha Temple." After saying that, Ning Chen pulled Ener and rushed northwest. "You're not going anywhere." At this moment, heaven and earth suddenly changed. Wind and clouds churned, and violet chi spread for thousands of meters. An abnormally powerful figure slowly descended, his violet robes fluttering wildly. "Violet Heavenly Palace." Ning Chen's expression darkened when he saw the person who appeared in the sky. "Marquis, knowing destiny, accept your life." Violet Heavenly Palace's figure instantly shot out, a powerful palm breaking through the sky. Ning Chen waved his hand, and Taisher's sword appeared. He blocked the attack. The palm and sword collided, causing heaven and earth to tilt. Dust and sand tumbled like waves. In the aftermath, Hongyi took half a step back, and a trace of red appeared at the corner of her mouth. Sword form, sky-severing. Taisher's sword intent rumbled, and the sky-severing sword appeared. Useless move. Violet Heavenly Palace's violet chi revolved around him. He scattered the sword chi with one palm and slammed it toward Ning Chen's chest. Ning Chen's left palm blocked the former's attack, but he was forced back several steps. You leave first. Don't come back." Ning Chen was aware that the situation was critical. He instructed before flipping his palm and sending the little girl out of the battle. "Ning Chen," yelled Ener anxiously. Her body involuntarily flew into the distance. "Marquis, knowing destiny, you really are in a sorry state right now." Violet Heavenly Palace sneered. His palm surged and he once again attacked. Blood flame. The demonic form appeared once more, and a deep bloody light burned the sky. At this critical moment, Ning Chen no longer cared about hiding his identity. Demonic chi surged around him, and his sword burned the sky. "You're really a demonic form." Violet Heavenly Palace's eyes turned cold. The violet chi in his palm grew stronger. He did not dodge, and he took the sword head-on. With a bang, Dust rose into the sky. Taisher was dyed red, and the red that scattered across the sky was so dazzling. The heavily injured knowing destiny was about to lose. Just as Ning Chun was in danger, thunderclouds rolled outside the Golden Buddha Temple at the foot of Swallow Cloud Mountain. In order to take revenge for Yao Qilua, Bai Yunlian forced his way in and killed Bodhi. In the demon-subduing pagoda, Bodhi sensed the changes outside. He sighed and walked out of the pagoda. Bald donkey, pay with your life for Yao Qilua and the thousands of creatures in the primitive land. After enduring for a long time, Bai Yunlian could no longer suppress the hatred in his heart. His body fell, and a huge waterfall poured down. With one palm, the Buddha and the demon began to fight. The formation patterns in the temple shook violently and shattered. The waterfall entered the temple, and the water flooded the Golden Buddha Temple. The white flood dragon, who came with murderous intent, did not care about anything else. He used the water of heaven and earth to drown the 1,000-year-old temple. In an instant, cries shook the sky. Hundreds of monks were swallowed by the flood, and it was hard to say whether they were dead or alive. In the next moment, the flood overflowed and flooded the villages downstream. Seeing this, Bodhi's expression changed. He channeled his Buddha energy, and 108 Buddha beads flew up, turning into 4 Buddha walls to block the flood. Demon Venerable, don't harm the innocent, Bodhi said. The lives of humans are important, but are the lives of demons not important? Bald donkey, today, I will take your head as a sacrifice to the thousands of lives of demons. As he spoke, the waterfall around Bai Yunlian turned into 9 water dragons and rushed toward the former. Helpless, Bodhi sighed. His hands moved and Buddha light shone. Bodhi mind meditation reappeared in the world. With a thought, clear and sacred Sanskrit resounded through the sky. Swastikas appeared one by one to protect the Buddha. In an instant, the 9 dragons collided with the Buddha, and the world shook. Bodhi in the Buddha temple was as immovable as a mountain. The 9 dragons scattered and turned into heavy rain. The aftershock caused Bai Yunlian's mouth to turn red. Waterfall turning heaven. The moment the 9 dragons scattered, the flood turned into a world-defying current. Behind Bai Yunlian, the demon's body was faintly visible. It merged into a huge whirlpool and fell from the sky. This move was extraordinary. Bodhi's expression also became serious. His fingers moved, and golden light illuminated the world. Bodhi mind meditation pardons sins. Buddhists repent of sins by killing. In the dazzling Buddha light, an illusory Buddhist holy weapon appeared and cut through the sky, slashing toward the demon. With a piercing sound, blood filled the sky. The whirlpool collapsed, and the demon's body collapsed. Bai Yunlian flew dozens of feet away, his blue clothes stained with blood. The difference in cultivation, the Buddhists and demons and the sovereigns of demons, were all at a disadvantage. Demon Venerable, your hatred has buried your reason. I can't let it go. Bodhi flipped his palm and channeled his Buddha energy. In an instant, the demon-subduing pagoda behind him shone brightly. Endless Buddha energy supported the Buddha's move. The spreading Buddha world was unprecedentedly powerful. Inside the Golden Buddha Temple, with the demon-subduing pagoda's support, the Bodhi in the Buddha temple reappeared. Ha! Seeing that the Buddha was unshakable, Bai Yunlian roared. The water of the yellow springs rolled out from his body. Endless cold chi kept corroding the Golden Buddha world. Weak water. Bodhi's eyes darkened. How could there be water of the yellow springs in the human world? 9 dragons against the world. Bai Yunlian took a step forward. 9 dragons circled and soared into the sky. The demon's final move, Buddha slaying, was incomparably majestic. Bodhi with a thought. The Buddhists gathered energy, the move to prove their supremacy. Endless Buddha energy met the demon's final move. With a loud bang, the entire Golden Buddha temple collapsed. Endless waves roared out, drowning everything within 100 miles. When the yellow springs entered his body, the Bodhi golden body was immediately broken. The Buddha energy in his body scattered. At this moment, an astonishing demonic chi soared into the sky. In the scattered golden light, the Bodhi and the ghost reappeared in the human world. Chapter 594. Inside the Golden Buddha Temple, The battle between the Buddhists and the demons caused the situation to change drastically. The venerables among the demons fell into the most dangerous moment of their lives. Her blue dress was dyed red, and drops of blood dripped down. Her eyes, which were as beautiful as the stars, were also covered with a touch of red. In front of him, the body of the demon had completely dissipated. Demonic chi overflowed into the sky, shocking the world. 6 calamities of demonic birth, blood, sin, hell. Subhuti took a step forward as devilish waves gushed out from his body. The Buddha world collapsed, and was replaced by a boundless blood-colored hell filled with sins. Hell appeared in the mortal world. Ghost Bodhi waved his hand, and 108 Buddhist beads flew into his hand. In an instant they turned into 108 skeletons. The completely demonized Buddha no longer had mercy in his eyes. There was only a heart-palpitating killing intent. Boundless demonic might, heaven and earth mourned. Bai Yunlian was affected by the demonic chi, and his body became violently unstable. In that instant, Ghost Bodhi's body disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he was right in front of the demon. Bai Yunlian's pupils constricted. A watery light gathered in front of him, and hurriedly blocked the demonic move. However, the demonic might was unshakable. With a bang, he dispersed the watery light with a palm and slapped the demon's body. Rain and blood gushed out as Bai Yunlian flew out and slammed into the demon ceiling pagoda. The Buddhist pagoda was dyed in demonic blood and was exceptionally glaring. Bai Yunlian fell to the ground and vomited another mouthful of vermilion blood. Demons should not exist in this world. Demonized Bodhi's voice was bone-chilling. The 108 skull prayer beads in his hand overflowed with demonic energy. A gloomy and heavy demonic wave spread out as another demonic attack was launched. 6 calamities of demons, heavenly calamity of wind soldiers. Demonic waves rolled up into a hurricane. The sea of clouds churned. The heavens pressed down and the earth surged. The move of demonic wind gathered the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. A black gale roared, shocking the world with its demonic might. A calamity for 1,000 li. Bai Yunlian forcefully raised his demonic chi. The 3,000 weak waters surging violently in the wind, rushing out in reverse. There was a shocking explosion. Heaven and earth were in chaos. The unequal cultivation levels showed the cruel truth once more. The venerable one of the demons was dyed red with blood. His injuries were piled on top of his injuries. Jade pool reflecting the moon. After suffering another heavy blow, Bai Yunlian barely managed to stabilize his body. He flipped his palm, and the resolute look in his eyes did not change at all. In order to avenge the millions of lives in the primordial lands, even if he had to die, he would have no regrets. Boundless demonic power condensed and took form. The Milky Way appeared in the horizon, and a crescent moon shone down. Space trembled violently. Under the moonlight, the Bodhi ghost body instantly moved and dodged the attack of the demonic chi. 6 calamities of demons, burning the city walls with fire. After a few steps, Bodhi stopped and waved the skull prayer beads. Black flames roared out and rushed towards the jade pool in the sky. Fire and water were incompatible. The 9 heavens shook, the demonic essence collapsed, and the bright moon scattered. Drink! Demons were hard to shake. Bai Yunlian took one last look at the human world with reluctance. Then, he narrowed his eyes and a hint of determination flashed through them. A piercing whistle resounded through the 9 heavens. In an instant, hundreds of miles of heaven and earth trembled violently. Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, the water in Qingxi Lake soared into the sky and into the 9 heavens. Then, the white flood dragon transformed and entered the heavenly waterfall, coiling around the horizon. Ghost Bodhi's face sank when he saw this, and he said, "White flood dragon, you're too naive if you want to forcefully utilize such an enormous water vein with your body of flesh and blood. As long as I can kill you, Bai Yunlian can die without regrets." The white flood dragon lightly shouted and gathered the last of his demonic chi. All the water within hundreds of miles gathered in the sky. Outside Swallow Cloud Mountain, Qingxi Lake instantly dried up, without a single drop of water left. Seeing that the demon was going all out, Ghost Bodhi's skull prayer beads spun, and he clasped his hands together. Above his head, a huge skull appeared in the sky. A terrifying suction force rapidly spread and devoured all the spiritual qi in the world. 6 calamities of demons, seal gods and devour souls. Under the thunderclouds, the two people's strength continuously increased. They were like the world's 2 brightest stars, illuminating the world within 1,000 miles. In the next moment, the 2 techniques collided. Swallow Cloud Mountain instantly suffered a calamity. The mountain range that had existed for countless years collapsed. The mountains moved and the earth shook. Rocks flew everywhere. The scene of the end of the world shocked the human world. In the battle, after a dozen breaths of time, the aftermath dissipated. On the ground that was riddled with holes, the demon stood tall. His white robe that was dyed black by demonic qi fluttered in the wind. In the sky, the white flood dragon, who had returned to his human form, fell from the sky. His vitality was difficult to detect. Ugh! The battle ended. Blood spurted out from Ghost Bodhi's chest. He staggered a few steps, unable to suppress his injuries. It's over. Ghost Bodhi stabilized his body and stepped forward. He flipped his palm. Not far away, the suppressing demon pagoda hummed and rose slowly. At the same time, thousands of miles away, on the Yindang Plain, the battle between the 2 powerhouses had reached its final stage. The master of the Divine Palace forced the Knowing Destiny demon body to kill him. The purple qi was vast and mighty, attracting heavenly thunder. Knowing Destiny, who was heavily injured, recovered his demonic form. The demonic fire around him lit up the world. Taisha restrained his brilliance and Qi Lian appeared. The shaking world continued to collapse. The powerful palm power and sword qi destroyed everything in their path. Everywhere they passed, there was devastation. Blood stained the sword. As the sword was swung, the blood spilled between heaven and earth. Knowing Destiny Marquis, who was heavily injured, was in a more critical situation. Skyfall. Qi Lian was in the sky. The sword will spread. Thousands of sword light fell like rain, destroying the wasteland. Purple qi control wind. The sword will attacked. The purple sky palace turned its palm and took in the qi. The wind rolled and the purple qi swayed out, blocking the thousands of sword rain. The sword move was broken. The purple qi was boundless and boundless. Knowing Destiny was blown away. Qi Lian was blown away. Blood splashed. The demonic disaster and the serious injury hit him at the same time. It was difficult to kill him. Seeing that his opponent was restrained, the purple sky palace didn't hold back. He stepped forward, and the palm spirit rolled and hit Qi Lian. The sword and the palm collided. One advanced and the other retreated. Qi Lian's hand was bleeding, but he still held the sword in his hand tightly and fought for a chance of survival. With a bang, Qi Lian stopped. The ground under his feet cracked. The sword turned and hit Qi Lian. In close combat, the palm and the sword collided again. The sword was cold, and the palm was heavy. Every move was a life and death battle. There was a tearing sound of the sword cutting through the silk. Blood stained the purple sky robe. The killing sword was extremely sharp. Even with the serious injury and the demonic disaster, it was not easy to defeat. The injuries were exchanged. The sword and the palm were close to each other, intertwining the most beautiful light of life and death. After a long battle, the purple sky palace looked more and more serious. He came prepared and had the advantage, but he still couldn't control the situation. The tenacity of Knowing Destiny was beyond his expectation. Blood flame. The demonic movement showed up. The flame rose with the momentum of burning the sky. It was shocking. The flame in the blood, and the sword in the flame. With a bang, the 2 strong forces collided again. Flames fell like rain. The 2 people standing in the sea of fire were injured at the same time. Their mouths were dyed red. When the remaining power disappeared, the purple sky palace turned his palm and hit the person in front of him again. He looked very gloomy. One move for another. Marquis Knowing Destiny. How many moves can you resist? Demonic movement nirvana. Without saying a word, Knowing Destiny turned the sword in his hand and stepped into the air. The aura around him condensed into a sword. In an instant, thousands of sword wills gathered from all directions. They crisscrossed, magnificent and lightless. The most powerful move was full of demonic qi. The magnificent sword radiance rushed out and hit the master of the divine palace. Purple Chi from the east, divine martial Dharma. Seeing that the move was extraordinary, the purple sky palace also activated his body. He turned his palm and held up the sky. Endless purple chi quickly gathered. The image of the martial god appeared in the world again. The two extremes collided. Dust and sand rolled like waves. In the aftermath, the sword radiance dissipated. The martial god broke through nirvana. The blood was the bell that signaled the defeat of the demonic cultivator. The red-robed man fell to the ground with his sword. Blood flowed down his body like a spring and flowed into the ground. Knowing destiny, you can't fight anymore. Retreat. The 49 leaders of the Taoist sects reminded him in unison. At least, we have to hold on until Ener leaves safely. In the pool of blood, Ning Chen staggered up with his sword. He clenched his left hand and Taisher appeared. He used the power of the demonic phoenix on his two swords. Rolling phoenix fire and dense demonic waves spread out endlessly. He turned his breath and opened the yin-yang formation again. The black and red Tai Chi diagram appeared in the sky, reflecting the brilliance of the yin-yang formation. The ruthless demonic cultivator refused to retreat for the sake of human feelings for the first time. The yin-yang formation opened. Ning Chen's aura was rapidly consumed. The unequal yin and yang aura shook violently. Looking at the Tai Chi diagram in the sky, the purple sky palace frowned. He turned his right palm. Purple chi surged and swept toward the demonic cultivator in the formation. His body shook violently. Yin and yang turned into power. In an instant, the purple chi disappeared. The formation is not bad. Unfortunately, it's still in vain. As he spoke, the purple sky palace's figure flashed. He condensed vast essence in his palm and attacked again. The two swords blocked the attack. The aftershock scattered. The formation turned into power. The unbalanced yin and yang array shook violently again. The purple sky palace used another 30% of his strength. With a bang, he pushed the demonic cultivator back. Heaven's tear. Ning Chen stood still. He condensed his primordial energy. The two swords left his hands and flew into the yin-yang formation. In an instant, the Tai Chi diagram in the sky rotated rapidly. Yin and yang turned into a rain of swords that fell from the sky. Useless struggle. Back off. The purple sky palace couldn't suppress his anger after a long battle. He turned his palm to shake off the rain of swords. His body erupted. Vast purple chi covered 100 miles. The yin-yang formation that was in danger was instantly broken. The purple sky palace groaned and retreated several steps. Blood spilled and dyed the ground red. The demonic cultivator, who had exhausted all his strength, couldn't hold on any longer. The demonic cultivator was heavily injured. With the demonic tribulation, the demonic phoenix couldn't spread its wings. It was in danger. Die! The purple sky palace took a step forward. His aura turned into a powerful wave. A majestic palm attack was launched. There was no turning back. There was no hesitation. At the moment of life and death, a bloody light flashed in Ning Chen's eyes. With a shout, the demonic chi around him surged wildly. The unprecedented pressure shook the world. The ground shook. Waves of dust rose into the sky. Before the attack was launched, the wind and clouds fell rapidly. The terrifying aura made the world tremble. With a loud bang, the black hair broke free from its restraints and danced wildly in the wind. Beneath him, the earth cracked apart one after another. Massive ravines extended for hundreds of miles. 6 paths fall together. Thousands of demonic tribulations. Taishang Forbidden Sword. The two swords flowed side by side. The demonic chi and phoenix primordial energy were activated. The demonic cultivator was 1,000 years old. His eyes were as red as blood. Feeling the terrifying pressure from the demonic cultivator, the purple sky palace's expression darkened. He pushed his cultivation to 30%. After the Dragon Gate incarnation appeared, the purple chi gathered to support the attack. Just as the two attacks were about to be launched, the wind and clouds in the distance suddenly changed. The sound of footsteps could be heard. A figure in plain clothes appeared. After a few steps, she appeared in the middle of the battle. Between the two, the figure in plain clothes raised her hand and pressed down the two swords. Then, with a flip of her right palm, she pushed the lord of the divine palace back. "You have done well. Leave the rest to me." A familiar voice, a familiar face. The figure in plain clothes danced in the wind. The original body of knowing destiny had reappeared in the world. Chapter 595. In the wild goose plain, knowing destiny appeared. His white clothes were flawless, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. Ning Chen separated the two with one move. He looked back at the master of the divine palace and said calmly, "Zi Tiangong, you dare to steal the origin of the divine prefecture under my protection. Today you will pay with your life." Arrogant. Zi Tiangong's expression turned cold. He stomped his feet and rushed out, turning his palm toward Ning Chen. Ning Chen raised his hand and didn't dodge. He met the former's move with his palm. The two palms collided, and their techniques collided directly. The mighty airflow surged wildly, destroying hundreds of miles of land in an instant. With a loud noise, the two separated. Zi Tiangong retreated a few steps. The master of the divine palace, who stood at the top of the supreme level, couldn't gain the upper hand. In terms of swordsmanship, Marquis knowing destiny stood at the top, but he wasn't the only one. However, in terms of foundation, Marquis knowing destiny was unparalleled in the world. After the palm fell, the demon behind Su Yi was shaken by the airflow. He staggered and vomited blood again. Ning Chen turned around and frowned. He said, "You should rest first." The demon nodded tiredly and stepped forward. In a flash of light, the two bodies merged into one again. Save the white dragon. After the last request, the demon gradually fell into a deep sleep to recover his injured body. The demon returned and memories flooded in. Ning Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, and his heart sank. This was not good. Time was of the essence, and there was no time to waste. Ning Chen looked over with a cold expression. He clenched his right hand, and in the midst of the bloody mist, a magnificent divine weapon that was green and red appeared out of nowhere. The moment he clenched the sword, at the point where the sword tip and the sword hilt intersected, lines that looked like blood vessels spread out and pierced into Ning Chen's hand. In an instant, Ning Chen and the sword breathed at the same time, and an unusually powerful sword pressure surged out. The next moment, Su Yi disappeared, and the blade reflected the moon and fell into the world. Zi Tiangong's eyes narrowed. He turned his palm to catch the sword, and felt an unshakable force. His right arm went numb, and the blade pressed down. With a rip, his clothes were torn. He retreated a few steps, and blood spurted into the air. Earth Scroll, Earth Destruction and Mountain Destruction. The martial arts of the tomes reappeared in the world. The blade in Ning Chen's hand stabbed into the ground, and sword chi rushed up from the ground, endless and unavoidable. Zi Tiangong retreated hurriedly. After a few steps, he leaped into the air and avoided the strongest edge of the sword chi. Protective true essence blocked the gradually weakening sword energy. However, at this moment Bai Yi reappeared in the air. She grasped her left hand, and a long and narrow pure white saber appeared. Scroll of Heaven, absolving heaven of sin. The blade slashed out, and a white light tore through heaven and earth, quickly slashing down. With a bang, Zi Tiangong turned his palm to block the blade. The huge force was difficult to block, and his body fell straight down like a meteor. 1,000 earth revolutions. Ning Chen waved his sword, and the ground of several thousand feet shook. The ground closed from both sides to the middle, and then joined together. Ah! With a muffled groan, blood flowed out of Zi Tiangong's mouth. After fighting with the demonic body, he had been severely injured again. Amidst the dust and sand in the sky, the purple cloud broke through the ground. The purple celestial palace rushed out with a palm, attacking the former, while the aftermath of the chaos. Unparalleled in the world, Ning Chen turned his head, and the blade in his left hand slashed out. Dazzling white light poured down unparalleled. With a bang, the void trembled. The blade that could not be blocked was dyed red again. Zi Tiangong staggered, and blood stained his purple robe. His face was full of disbelief. He said, "It's only been 20 years. How can you have such strength? This is impossible. It's been 20 years, and you haven't taken the last step." Tiangong, actually I'm also very surprised. Ningchen said lightly. His feet moved, and his figure instantly rushed forward. The blade moved rhythmically, and the sword light was like a heavenly net, sharp and piercing. Tiangong hurriedly blocked the attack, but his body did not have the upper hand, and his moves were restricted everywhere. For a moment he was at a disadvantage. Heaven and earth together, life and death against fate. Not willing to fight for a long time, Ningchen combined the blade and sword in his hands, and turned into two rainbows. In an instant, heaven and earth changed, and the white blade light turned into a falling cloud, pressing down from the sky. Tiangong fell quickly, and the ground surged again. Endless sword light rushed to the sky, and the blade light and sword light intersected, sealing off all escape routes. Seeing blood, Tiangong retreated several steps. He covered his chest, and blood kept flowing out. It's time to return what belongs to the Divine Prefecture. At this moment, Sui appeared in front of the Lord of the Divine Palace. Her sword finger condensed qi, and a sword broke through the sea of qi. With a painful groan, blood spurted all over the sky, and the aura of the origin surged out. 70% of the peak of the Great Fulfillment was destroyed in an instant. I can't die, I can't die. Tiangong's eyes flashed with madness. He used the last 3 successful bodies, the blood-dissolving forbidden technique. In an instant a bloody mist filled the sky, and with a loud bang, heaven and earth fell. Ningchen's eyes narrowed slightly. He waved his blade and sword, and the life-dissolving scroll blocked the incoming blood origin. Taking half a step back and stopping, Ningchen looked at the empty sky in front of him, sighed softly, and rushed to the other side. In the distance, in the lonely wilderness, a little girl squatted in place and cried softly. Her little hand kept wiping the tears from her face, and she was terrified. She knew that her master was doomed, but she did not dare to go forward and become a burden. She could only squat there and wait helplessly. Ener. Just at this moment, a gentle voice called out to her. The little girl raised her head and saw a familiar face. She was startled at first, but she immediately got up and threw herself over, crying loudly. Ener, be good. Don't cry. Ningchen rubbed the little girl's hair and coaxed her gently. Wu, you scared me to death. Ina hugged him tightly and cried. It's okay. Ener, be good. Don't cry. Your big sister Bai is in danger. We have to hurry and save her, said Ningchen softly. Hearing his words, Ener stopped crying. She raised her head and said nervously, Don't cry. Let's go save big sister Bai. Ningchen nodded. He took the little girl and turned into a ray of light, rushing northwest. At the Golden Buddha Temple, the battle between the Buddhists and demons had ended. The demons subduing pagoda slowly rose, covering the white clouds that were gradually losing their vitality. It rumbled and slowly descended. With a loud bang, the pagoda fell, and Buddhist light rose, refining the demon sovereign within the pagoda. White Flood Dragon. The moment the pagoda fell, Sui arrived. Seeing the bloodstained figure disappear into the pagoda, her calm eyes were instantly filled with rage. Amipa. Knowing destiny appeared. Ghost Bodhi stepped in front of the pagoda, his black Buddhist robes surging with demonic qi. Scram! Ningchen's expression turned cold, and his killing intent was difficult to suppress. Bai Yunlian's demonic nature is difficult to change. Water flooded the Golden Buddha Temple, harming the surrounding people. She has committed a heinous crime, and should be suppressed under the pagoda forever, said Ghost Bodhi coldly. It's not up to you to punish her for her sins. Supreme Bodhi, you who slaughtered thousands of creatures in the primordial lands, what right do you have to be merciful? As she spoke, Sui moved. Knowing destiny's sword split the ground, and a powerful force shook the heavens. Ghost Bodhi blocked the attack. Demonic qi surged, transforming into sword intent. 6 calamities demonic birth, fire burning the city walls. Bodhi used his demonic qi again. Black flames rose with a terrifying might, burning the sky and boiling the sea. Supreme Bodhi, I gave you your demonic essence. Showing off your slight skill in front of an expert is foolish beyond compare. Ningchen coldly mocked. His left hand instantly turned black, circulating the demonic qi in his body, and injecting it into his saber. Demonic technique blood flame. Rolling blood waves surged in all directions. The saber light slashed down, and the power from the same source collided. The blood flame swallowed the demonic chi, and the saber slashed Bodhi. With a muffled groan, Bodhi retreated, his mouth red. Supreme Bodhi, you have lost your immortal Buddha body. You have no chance of winning. Sui moved, and the tip of the sword advanced. Wind and snow split the sky, and love reappeared. As the sword light flashed, the sky was filled with frost. 3,000 miles of sword snow. Cold air spread, and the world was frozen. The demonic chi surging in the sky disappeared in an instant. Blood stained the white snow. Ugh! Blood splashed, and Ghost Bodhi retreated a few steps, vomiting red blood. The situation was unfavorable. Ghost Bodhi took 3,000 demonic chi and slammed it toward Ning Chun. Then he stomped his feet and immediately headed west. Ning Chun waved his sword to disperse the attack. He was worried about the white flood dragon's safety, so he did not chase after him. He rushed to the suppression pagoda and waved his sword, forcefully destroying the pagoda. The earth shook, but the pagoda made of immortal Buddha blood was not damaged at all. Seeing this, Ning Chun snorted coldly and stepped into the air. The 4 scrolls of the heavenly book changed, and the scene of creation reappeared in the world. 4 scrolls together, no life in the world. Amidst the chaos, the blades of swords and sabers pierced through the air and collided with the pagoda. With an earth-shattering tremor, the demon-sealing pagoda shattered. Under the pagoda, a blood-stained blue-clothed figure silently lay on the ground. Her eyes were closed, and her vitality was fading. White Flood Dragon. Ning Chun rushed forward and knelt down to pick up Bai Yunlian, but the heavily injured and dying woman did not respond. Her vitality was fading faster and faster. Female Supreme, Ning Chun said anxiously. As he finished speaking, the sky rippled, and an illusory figure appeared. Her presence shook, and she was extremely powerful. Female Supreme, please save her life. You were able to save me back then, so you can save her, Ning Chun said urgently. The female Supreme looked at the woman lying in the former's arms. After a long time, she sighed softly and said, The Yao core is destroyed, there is no saving her. The reason I was able to save you back then was because I used the many years of foundation of Chongling. The soul-suppressing orb, the 3-soul grass, these things cannot be found easily. It is too late. Hearing this, Ning Chun's body shook. His fists clenched and blood seeped out between his fingers. No matter what, I cannot let the person I cherish leave my sight again. Ha! With a light shout, Ning Chun's body surged with wind and snow. A giant whirlpool of wind and snow appeared at the foot of Swallow Cloud Mountain. In this shocking scene, the boundless power of the Scroll of Life continuously poured into the dying Bai Yunlian's body. The female Supreme's expression changed, and she immediately stopped him. Knowing destiny, do not be impulsive. Your cultivation has not stabilized. Forcefully coming out of seclusion is already a risk. If you damage your foundation, the calamity of all life in the future will consign you to eternal damnation. Before she finished speaking, the wind and snow suddenly went wild. Defying the heavens and changing fate, the heavens could not tolerate it. Even the unparalleled life scroll showed signs of instability and shook violently. His foundation was damaged. The wind and snow were dyed red. Snowflakes and blood were hard to distinguish at this moment. Knowing destiny, I do not want to have any more regrets in this life. Inside the giant wind and snow whirlpool, Ning Chun suppressed his chaotic body and poured the foundation of the life scroll into Bai Yunlian's body to heal his heavily injured body. After a lifetime of running around, he did not know his own fate. Now that Bai Yunlian was dying, Ning Chun could no longer maintain his calm. He did not care about the price to forcefully change fate. Chapter 596. At the foot of Swallow Cloud Mountain, wind and snow raged. Knowing destiny changed fate, and used the peerless foundation of the life scroll to forcefully heal Bai Yunlian's severely wounded and dying body. The Yao core shattered, and the Yao energy surged, destroying the latter's life force. The Yao body that had just been healed was heavily injured again. In the air, The female sovereign's avatar saw this, and her expression turned serious. She said gravely, "Disperse the Yao patterns, settle the three souls, break the mortal bond." Hearing this, Ningchen's body shook. But Bai Yulian's life was in danger. He could not hesitate. His palm turned into energy, and the life scroll was pushed to the limit to disperse the surging Yao energy. With the loss of the Yao energy, Bai Yulian's presence quickly weakened. His 1,000 years of cultivation dissipated in a day. Without the Yao energy, he could not maintain his human form. At the moment of transformation, Ningchen gathered the power of the four scrolls again. The scene of world creation appeared around him. There was no reincarnation, and the world roared, fixing the Yao's human form. The Yao body stabilized, the three souls stabilized. At the moment of forgetting, the determined knowing destiny hesitated for a moment. "Do not delay, break the mortal bond," the female sovereign reminded in a deep voice. The Yao energy dissipated, and the Yao body reformed like a newborn. The soul power was weak, and all the memories were not something the present white serpent could bear. The past had to be forgotten. There was no room for hesitation. Ningchen suppressed all the emotions in his heart. With a soft shout, he entered the forgetting and broke the mortal bond. As Bai Yulian's life stabilized, the wind and snow dissipated. Ningchen withdrew his hand and grunted. Drops of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. "Knowing destiny, do not forget what you promised me." After dealing with the chaos of the Tianfu, immediately returned to Chongling. As she spoke, specks of light scattered in the air. The female sovereign's avatar disappeared from the world. Ningchen was silent. He picked up the unconscious Bai Yunlian and walked out of the temple. Maqiao village, a village downstream of Qingxi Lake. Affected by the flood and the Battle of Golden Buddha Temple, the entire village suffered. Hundreds of houses were destroyed, and thousands of villagers were displaced. After that day, the flood receded for some reason and returned to Qingxi Lake. Only a few villagers saw the snow falling from Qingxi Lake. It was unusually beautiful. During the reconstruction of Maqiao village, a beautiful lady came to the village. Her eyes were like stars, mesmerizing others. The woman's name was Bai Yunlian, a very pleasant name. No one knew where she came from, not even the woman herself. The girl learned everything very quickly. Her kind and hardworking personality made the villagers gradually like this beautiful girl. Especially the young people in the village. They even expressed their admiration for her intentionally or unintentionally. In the process of rebuilding the village, there was always a young man in plain clothes watching quietly from afar, but he never appeared in front of the villagers. From being unfamiliar to becoming familiar with the human world, the woman didn't spend too much time. After the village was rebuilt, the plain-clothed young man left, never looking back. The woman turned around, her eyes flashed with confusion, and a wisp of annoyance arose in her heart. "Miss Bai, it will be Chongyang in a few days. Let's go to Qingxi Lake to enjoy the scenery." Not far away, a young villager walked forward. He did not hide the admiration in his eyes as he invited her. When Bai Yunlian heard this, he shook his head apologetically and said, "Sorry, I have something to do that day, so I won't be going." In the northern region of the central province, the flames of war continued without end. Above the ruined mountains and rivers, plainclothes walked past, holding the hand of a 13 or 14-year-old little girl, heading south. In Tianheng City, Mu Chang'e stood on the city wall, looking at the half of the central province that was gradually falling into the hands of the treasury. There was not much joy in his eyes. At this moment, a plain-clothed young man walked over from afar. He had a familiar face, but a completely different aura. On the city wall, Mu Chang'e narrowed his eyes. The Marquis of Knowing Destiny. No. In front of the city, Ningchen stepped on the ground and jumped up with Yin. He landed on the city wall and looked at the man in front of him. He said, "Senior Sword Venerable, how have you been?" "You are?" Mu Chang'e asked seriously. Ningchen turned over his palm, and a wisp of phoenix spirit lingered around it, then dissipated. He said with a chuckle, "It has only been a few months. Can't you recognize the knowing destiny state?" "The doppelganger technique," Mu Chang'e said slowly. "Yes and no. It's a long story. Can you let me see the Star Venerable's injuries first? Ningchen said. Hearing this, Wuxia's eyes lit up. He said, Do you have a way to wake up the Star Venerable? I won't know until I try, Ningchen said calmly. Follow me. Wuxia hesitated for a moment, then turned around and walked toward the city. Within a quiet and tranquil stone room in the bamboo pavilion, oppressive cold air emanated from it. On an ice bed that was carved from cold jade, a noble and beautiful figure was in deep slumber. And even though the aura in her body had stabilized, she showed no signs of waking up. The joint attack of the demonic Buddha and the Purple Sky Palace almost destroyed Chao Tianxi, who had been seriously injured. If the Sword Venerable hadn't saved him with the celestial treading source, he would have been dead. Ningchen raised his hand. A wisp of strange aura of the origin appeared. It was colorful and powerful. Seeing this, Wuxia narrowed his eyes. The celestial treading source. With a shout, Ningchen turned over his palm and put the celestial treading source into Chao Tianxi's body. Then he used the life scroll to help Chao Tianxi integrate the power of the origin. An extremely cold aura surged. In an instant, frost surged in the frozen stone room, and everything was white. Soon Ningchen stopped. He looked at the person behind him and said calmly, If nothing goes wrong, the Star Venerable should wake up soon. Are there strong people in the celestial treading state in the inner realm? Wuxia asked seriously. Ningchen smiled and said, It doesn't matter whether there are or not. The Heaven Mansion and the inner realm are not enemies. Wuxia frowned and said, Marquis Jiming, what do you want to say? Let's wait until the Star Venerable wakes up. Ningchen glanced at the woman on the cold jade bed and said. Wuxia nodded and didn't ask any more questions. Half a day later in the bamboo loft. On the stone table there was mist. The tea boiling on the fire made a sizzling sound. Two people sat quietly on both sides of the stone table, waiting for the tea to be ready. Marquis Jiming, thank you very much, Chao Tianxi said softly as he poured a cup of tea and pushed it forward. You're welcome. I propose the peace talk. As a military counselor, the inner realm broke its promise. Even the Jiming realm made mistakes. This time, I'm just making up for my mistakes, Ningchen said calmly. Chao Tianxi poured another cup of tea and refilled it. He said, I don't understand. With your wisdom, you should know that waking me up now will only make things worse for the inner realm. Ningchen smiled faintly and said, The reason is simple. I need someone who can make decisions. Compared with the Sword Venerable, the Star Venerable has more influence on the Heaven Mansion. What do you mean? Chao Tianxi asked softly. Does the Heaven Mansion want the Central Prefecture or the Heaven Mansion? Ningchen asked seriously. Chao Tianxi's eyes lit up. He said, I know about the Square Divine Tower. However, it's almost impossible to move a life star with complete laws. It's hard to move a life star. But what about a dead star? The Star Venerable should still remember how to open the boundary of the Pluto King, Ningchen said. What do you mean? Chao Tianxi frowned. Collide stars, Ningchen said calmly. During the Double Ninth Festival, it was raining. After the morning rain, the water rippled on Qingxi Lake. The beautiful scene was even more charming. On the lake, scholars and beautiful women were enjoying the scenery on boats. They came and went. It was not lively at all. The most beautiful season and the most beautiful scenery attracted countless tourists. Day after day, year after year, Ningchen walked in plain clothes and held a little girl's hand. When he was dealing with the affairs of the Heaven Mansion, the little girl dragged him over. I want to eat sugar-coated haws, the little girl said in a sweet voice beside Ningchen. How old are you? Ningchen asked softly, but he still looked around. Then he pulled Yin to a stall not far away. How many do you want? Ningchen asked in front of the stall. 2, no 3. Yin stretched out 2 fingers, then 1, and smiled happily. Ningchen smiled and bought 3 sugar-coated haws with silver. He handed them to the little girl and said, Don't let them get on your clothes. Okay. Yin nodded. She took out 1 and handed it back to him. She said in a sweet voice, 1 for you. Ningchen took it and held it in his hand. He held the little girl's hand with his other hand and walked forward. Flower cakes. They hadn't walked far when Ener saw the double sun cakes on the side of the stall. Her face was filled with desire. Ningchen was helpless. He couldn't bear to refuse her. He brought her to another stall and bought a paper bag of flour cakes. Just as the two of them were touring Qingxi Lake, a woman in a blue and white dress appeared on the other side of the lake. Her eyes were so beautiful that people couldn't help but be intoxicated by them. On the day of the Double Sun Festival, Bai Yunlian still came. However, he didn't come with the youths from Maqiao village. Instead, he came alone. For some reason, Bai Yunlian felt that this place was very familiar. It was as if he had come here before. The people on both sides of the lake didn't see each other. It was difficult to continue a broken mortal bond. Rumble thunder rumbled in the sky. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and there were signs of rain once more. The rain pitter-pattered down, and the tourists all avoided it. Among the people hurrying to and fro, Ina looked left and right, and immediately broke free from the former's hand. "I'll go buy an umbrella. Wait for me on the bridge," Ina said. She passed through the crowd and ran toward the stall in the distance. Ningchen frowned slightly. He looked at the eye-catching Qingxi Bridge behind him and walked over. On the bridge, people were rushing back and forth. Below, the people on the lake all hid in their boats to avoid the rain. They weren't in the mood to admire the beautiful scenery in the rain. Qingxi Lake rippled in the rain. The mist rose, making it seem like a dream. It was like a paradise on earth. It was beautiful beyond words. Ningchen stood quietly on the bridge. He didn't use his cultivation to block the rain. He was like an ordinary person. He looked at the misty lake and allowed the rain to wet his plain clothes. The autumn wind was slightly cold. It brushed past his plain clothes. The rain dripped down his clothes and scattered in the wind. He was willing to be ordinary, but he saw the autumn rain in his eyes. At this moment, a plain and clean oil paper umbrella silently appeared, blocking the falling autumn rain and the chill of the autumn wind. "Young master, can we share an umbrella?" Under the umbrella was a familiar face. She was dressed in a blue and white dress. Her red lips were slightly parted, and her eyes were like stars. She was so beautiful that the entire Qingxi Lake lost its color. Chapter 597. An unknown life planet passed by in the starry sky. It was getting closer and closer to Tianfu. There was not much time left. On the life planet, a plain robe fluttered in the wind. Beside him stood 3 people. Each of them had a powerful aura. None of them was weaker than the supreme realm. The power of laws on this life planet is extraordinary. Even if the Sword Venerable and I work together, it is difficult to resist. Chao Tianqi looked at the plain-robed young man beside him and said softly. Ningchen looked around and nodded. The present situation is indeed different from when the divine prefecture of the eastern region was pulled into the 4 regions. The divine prefecture is deficient, and after the Nether King's calamity, the laws of heaven and earth were destroyed. Disasters occur frequently. It is not strange that the Purple Heavenly Palace and the Demon Buddha can pull the divine prefecture. Perhaps there is a special method, but it is not the decisive reason. There is no time to wait. Now the most urgent problem we need to solve is how to resist the power of laws on this planet. Immortal maybe, but treading immortals are not true immortals. The difference of one word is like the difference between heaven and earth. Chao Tianqi sighed softly. Let's follow the plan and find a withered star of the same size. Just in case, I need to invite another person, Ningchen said calmly. A treading immortal from the inner realm? Chao Tianqi asked. Ningchen did not answer. It was a silent admission. The 4 returned and prepared for their future missions. Ningchen took Yin, to the west and returned to the homeland of West Buddha. There were layers of formations outside the ancient land of Chongling. No outsiders were allowed to enter the forbidden land of West Buddha. Ningchen stepped into the ancient land. The formation patterns flickered. Soon he disappeared into the formation. In the ancient land, the 4 cauldrons rotated. In a magnificent hall, the female supreme opened her eyes. Her figure flashed and came to the end of the formation. Is the matter resolved? The female supreme looked at the plain-robed figure and asked. Ningchen shook his head and said, the power of Tianfu may not be enough. I came back to ask the female supreme to leave Chongling and help if necessary. Two treading immortals cannot resolve the crisis of Tianfu? The female supreme frowned slightly and said, just in case. The demon body has already failed once. I do not want another accident to happen, Ningchen said seriously. The female supreme nodded and said, it is hard to believe that as former enemies, the Tianfu Star Venerable and the Sword Venerable still have such trust in you after one failure. Honest people know their fate and treat others with sincerity, Ningchen said calmly. The noble woman was silent. Moments later she sighed softly. I hope that I was not wrong when I promised you to leave Chongling a few days ago. The living being's tribulation doesn't necessarily come from all living beings. After all, no one has passed this tribulation. Female Supreme, you don't have to think too much about it, said Ningchen with a smile. Let's go. No matter what, you have to come back and stabilize your cultivation once we're done with the heavenly sanctum. After saying that, the female supreme didn't say anything else and walked forward. Having experienced the Empyrean tribulation before, he knew how terrifying the final tribulation was. However, among the many Empyrean tribulations, there were three types of heresy: demonic tribulation, love tribulation, and all beings tribulation. Among the three tribulations, ordinary people would have a slim chance of survival if they encountered one of them. However, knowing destiny state cultivators had already encountered two of them. The devil's body was deeply involved in the demonic tribulation, and his original body encountered the tribulation of all living beings, which only existed in legends. With the arrival of the gods, the mortal world was shrouded in darkness for 100 years. All living beings had to go through the immeasurable tribulation. This tribulation was originally for all living beings, but knowing destiny forcibly changed it. In the end, they had to bear the tribulation that all living beings had yet to go through. The female supreme was speechless as she walked forward. Her heart was very complicated. All living beings were bitter, but knowing destiny state was even more bitter. However, knowing destiny state had never seen bitterness as bitterness. Behind her, Ningchen held Yiner's hand and followed. Yiner looked at the constantly changing formations around her and asked softly, "Can I learn these formations?" A gentle expression appeared on Ningchen's face. He said softly, "Yes, I'll ask the female supreme to teach you." When Yiner heard this, she broke into a smile and was extremely happy. This child's foundation was cleansed with phoenix blood? The female supreme glanced sideways and asked. Yes, it was done with the body of a phoenix. Ningchen nodded. Chongling has many cultivation methods and secret arts. You have seen many. Teach her whatever she likes. Don't worry too much. As an elder, I'm giving a junior a little token of appreciation, the female supreme said with a calm expression. Ningchen rubbed the hair of the little girl beside him and said, Yiner quickly thanked the female supreme. Thank you, female supreme, Yiner said sweetly. Learn well. Your master is the best master in the world, the female supreme said softly. Okay, Yiner replied obediently. Tianheng City. After the three of them arrived, they used the formations to enter the heavenly abode again. In the heavenly abode Holy Land, in front of the star Soul Life Sea, the six-flower venerable was still standing there, trying his best to deduce the day when the two stars would collide. Seeing the person who had come, the six-flower venerable showed a trace of respect and said, Jiming Marquis, sorry for not welcoming you. No need to be polite. How is it? How much time do we have? Ningchen asked seriously. 2 years and 4 months. The six-flower venerable looked at the person in front of him and said, Jiming Marquis, the star venerable said that you are a sincere person and worthy of trust. I believe in the star venerable's judgment. This time please. I will do my best, Ningchen replied calmly. After waiting for more than a month, Mu Chang'e and the others returned one after another. After another 2 months, Xiao Bieli and Xiao Tianqi also returned to the Holy Land. Their eyes were filled with exhaustion from running around. How was it? Ningchen asked. We found 3 withered stars and left 12 venerables to construct the pagoda. But it's different from last time. That life star speed is far beyond our imagination. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to guarantee that the three withered stars will collide, said Xiaobieli. Ningchen fell silent. A long time later he sighed and looked at Chao Tianxi. Star Venerable, I need to meet with the 12 venerables alone. What is it? Chao Tianxi didn't understand. There are 2 answers that the 12 venerables need to choose for themselves, said Ningchen. Chao Tianxi frowned slightly and replied, I will arrange your request as soon as possible. Is there anything else you need to pay attention to? Ningchen thought for a moment and warned. After the collision, the laws of the world on that life star will show a temporary flaw. However, it won't be for long. So you have to seize the opportunity. No matter what happens during that time, you have to put it aside and focus on moving the star. I understand. Chao Tianxi nodded. 10 days later, within a quiet hall in the Holy Land, Bai Yi stood there. Numerous illusory figures appeared in front of him. There were 12 of them in total. Their auras were different, but they were all equally powerful. Jiming Marquis, may I know why you've come looking for us? Asked one of the illusory figures. There's something that the venerables need to decide for themselves. There's no need to tell me the answer. I'm only responsible for explaining the situation. As for what you choose, it's up to you, said Ningchen calmly. Please speak. Another one of the 12 asked. Ningchen's expression turned serious, and he said, compared to the last time, this life star's speed has greatly increased. Moreover, it's getting faster and faster. When the star collides, it's very likely that it will deviate from its position. So there are 2 choices for the venerables to consider. The first is to follow the original plan and use a formation to leave when it approaches the life star. The second is to use the 4 directions divine pagoda as the foundation. The venerables will control the direction of the star until the final moment of collision. Chapter 598. In the main hall of the Holy Land, it was so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. The 12 illusionary figures were all silent because of Jiming's words. After a long time, a venerable from the original Holy Land finally spoke. He said seriously, Marquis Jiming, if only 1 dry star hits, what's the success rate? 50%. Ningchen said honestly. What about 3? Another venerable from the Holy Land asked. Every additional dry star increases the chance of success by 20%. If all 3 dry stars hit, the final success rate will be at least 90%, Ningchen answered. The reason why it was 90% instead of 100% was that the last 10% was the will of heaven, that no one could predict. The 2 venerables nodded and looked at the 2 people beside them. They said calmly, fellow cultivators, it's time to repay the kindness of the star venerables. The other 2 nodded softly. Their eyes were as clear as water. It seemed that they had just made a simple choice. Jiming has said what needs to be said. Venerables, think carefully about your choice after you go back, Ningchen said. Thank you. The 4 venerables nodded. They didn't stay any longer. They bowed politely and left first. Just as they were about to disappear, one of them paused for a moment. He looked at the remaining 8 sovereigns and softly said, Everyone, compared to ordinary people, we have lived for hundreds of years longer. We have descendants, disciples, and even relatives. Sacrificing 12 of us in exchange for the lives of our descendants and the lives of millions of people in the heavenly sanctum is worth it. No matter how good a foreign land is, it can't compare to your own home. That's all I have to say. I ask that everyone carefully consider this. Venerable Qinghui's figure gradually faded and disappeared. The other 8 venerables also left one after another. They were silent. No one could tell what they were thinking. Ningchen sighed softly and turned to leave the main hall. He couldn't expect a person to be flawless. There were only 2 kinds of people who could sacrifice themselves for others without asking for anything in return. They were fools and sages. There weren't many fools in the world, and even fewer sages. In the inner world, there used to be teachers in Dao Kuei. Now there were none. The heavenly abode's star venerables were perhaps the last sages in the world. With Chao Tianxi's presence, the heavenly abode's star venerables were worthy of respect no matter what their intentions were. They were willing to risk their lives for the people of the heavenly abode. He could not ask for more. 12 human supremes and billions of creatures in the heavenly abode. It seemed like an easy choice, but life was never measured by numbers. In particular, the 12 supremes had to make their own decisions. Choosing death was not difficult, but choosing one's own death was not easy. With a rumble, the doors to the hall opened. Chao Tianxi was waiting outside. He looked at the plain-clothed young man and said, "Now, can you tell me what it is?" "No." Ningchen shook his head and said, "It's not up to me to say this, and it's not up to knowing destiny to decide. If Star Venerables want to know, you can ask the 12 Venerables." Not too far away, Xiao Bieli remained silent. As the minister of Heaven's sanctum, he had more or less guessed what was going on. In the 3rd month, everything was ready. On the day before their departure, the sun was setting in the Holy Land, and the afterglow shone on the desolate Holy Land. In the past, the land was abandoned for the sake of forging the astral soul-flowing fire, and even now, not a single blade of grass or tree grew. Knowing destiny, thank you. Chao Tianxi's body was glowing as he looked at the beautiful land of the heavenly abode. There's no need. I'm doing this because I don't want the inner realm to be ravaged by war again. After all, there are people I cherish there, Ningchen calmly replied. I hope that the heavenly abode and the inner realm will always be peaceful, and that the people will be prosperous and healthy, Chao Tianxi said softly. Ningchen was silent. A woman had once said similar words to him. At the same time, they had once been enemies. The great wish of peace in the world was so far away, but there were always people who worked hard on this endless road without any complaints or regrets. On the 2nd day, as soon as the sky brightened, numerous figures stepped into the teleportation array and disappeared in a flash of light. In the starry sky, Jiming, Xiao Bieli, and the 6 flower supremes appeared on the unknown life star that was heading towards the heavens territory. On the other side, Chao Tianxi, Mu Chang'e, and Nu Chang appeared on the withered star that was forming the character with the heavens territory. Let's begin, said Ningchen. Yes. Xiao Bieli and the 6 flower sovereigns nodded. With a shout, the 3 of them began to circulate their cultivation techniques. Vast amounts of true qi soared into the sky. Their shocking auras caused the land within hundreds of miles to shake violently. At the same time, in the boundless starry sky, on top of the 3 huge withered stars, the brilliance of the 4 corners divine towers shot straight into the starry sky. The origins of the 12 human sovereigns merged with the power of the divine towers, and forcefully moved the huge stars under them towards the direction of the vital stars. On the planet of life, the 3 of them sensed it at the same time. They pushed their cultivation techniques to the limit, and accelerated the planet's movement. It was an unprecedentedly powerful lineup. 15 Supreme Being experts were working together to activate the unprecedented collision plan. In the vast and boundless starry sky, the 3 withered stars were rapidly moving. They were getting faster and faster. And in a flash, they were so fast that it was difficult to see them with the naked eye. Time passed slowly. The 3 stars were getting closer and closer to the planet of life. In the 4 towers, the pressure on the 12 sovereigns was increasing. On the planet of life, Ningchen looked at the giant shadow in the sky and said calmly, "We should go." With that, Ningchen didn't waste any more time. He stepped into the teleportation array. Xiao Bieli and the 6 flower sovereigns followed behind him and left. In the sky, 1 star was already infinitely close to the planet of life. The 2 stars were extremely fast and were about to collide. "Fellow cultivators, do you regret it?" asked Qing Hui Reverend from one of the towers. "No regrets." 3 voices echoed. In the next moment, the star of life collided with the planet of life. It burned fiercely like a meteor. In the blink of an eye, there was an earth-shattering explosion. The entire planet of life shook violently. When the first star collided, 2 more withered stars followed. Unexpectedly, no one came out of the tower. The same choice, the same trajectory. The 2 withered stars followed the trajectory of the first star and collided with the big star below. The dazzling brilliance illuminated the planet. When life bloomed, it was so beautiful. The 12 sovereigns, no matter what they were like when they were alive, had all chosen to fight for a bright future for the people of the heavenly abode. They didn't want to live under someone else's roof. In the distance on the Star of Life, Sui walked out. She glanced at the planet of life in the distance. A complicated look flashed in her eyes. She said, "Star Sovereign, it's time." Chao Tianqi and Mu Chang'e heard her and nodded at the same time. They stepped out and shouted softly. Their treading immortal cultivation instantly erupted. After the explosion on the planet of life, the 4 towers of the 4 poles shone brightly. They broke through the waves of dust and shot into the starry sky. The 2 stars responded to each other. A powerful pulling force pulled the planet of life towards the desolate planet in the distance. However, just as everyone thought they had succeeded, the planet of life was affected by the collision. The Ice Divine Tower in the north started to crack. The origin energy scattered, and the movement of the planet of life was stopped. It was a deadlock. Ningchen narrowed his eyes and said, "Female Sovereign." The female sovereign stepped forward. She turned her palm and condensed yuan to help the 2 of them. When the 3 treading immortals joined forces, the pulling force increased by 30%. Unexpectedly, the cracks on the Ice Divine Tower in the north of the planet of life became even more severe. It forcibly balanced the power of the 3. This is troublesome. It's hard to guarantee that the 2 stars won't collide with each other at this distance, said Xiao Bieli. There's a problem with the Ice Divine Tower, said Chao Tianqi. We can't wait any longer. Star Sovereign, you and I both have ice attribute bodies. We must immediately repair the tower, said Ningchen decisively. Okay. Chao Tianqi nodded. He glanced at the 2 people who were holding the planet of life and said, I'll leave it to you too. Star Sovereign, don't worry. Just go back. Mu Chang'e replied and shouted. He pushed his body to the limit and pulled the planet with all his strength. The female sovereign on the side also condensed her yuan and used all her strength. She glanced at the plain-clothed figure who was about to enter the formation and said, Ji Ming, don't forget what you promised me. Ningchen smiled and said, Female sovereign, don't worry. I'll be fine. As he spoke, the 2 people who entered the formation disappeared and returned to the planet of life. Dust billowed everywhere on the life star after the collision, covering the sky and the sun. Only the 4 light columns were so clear that they looked like lighthouses guiding people who had lost their way, bringing endless light to people. Among the 4 pillars of light, the one in the north was obviously much weaker. The power of the Ice Divine Tower leaked out quickly. It was difficult to pull the planet of life. On the way to the northern Divine Tower, Chao Tianqi asked in a low voice, Ji Ming, are the 12 venerables still alive? Ningchen was silent. After a while, he sighed and said, According to the degree of destruction of this planet, the 3 dry stars all hit this planet. None of the 12 venerables in the tower left. Sadness flashed in Chao Tianqi's eyes. He said, How are the people of the heaven mansion compared to the people of the inner world? People's hearts can't be compared, said Ningchen honestly. Chao Tianqi smiled bitterly and sped up. He turned into a beam of light and rushed to the north. Ji Ming, as long as there's a chance, I won't allow the thousands of people in the heaven mansion to live under someone else's roof. The heaven mansion is our hometown. Even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will protect it. The figure in the distance was so determined. Ningchen sighed again and followed him. On the planet, the Ice Divine Tower stood in the northern polar region that had collapsed. Cracks spread across the body of the tower. It was on the verge of collapse. Star Venerables, I tried my best. Under the tower, the arcane Venerables murmured. The vitality in his eyes became dimmer and dimmer. He had used his life as the foundation to support the Ice Divine Tower until now. In the end, he couldn't hold on anymore. Arcane Venerables, Chao Tianqi walked forward. Seeing the arcane Venerables slowly fall, his heart ached. He wanted to save them, but it was too late. Ningchen entered the pagoda and looked at the huge cracks on the pagoda. His eyes darkened. He turned his palm and condensed his qi. He activated the life scripture and a blizzard appeared. Endless frost filled the air around the pagoda, repairing the cracks. No one had thought that the star-moving formation, which had been going smoothly, would have a problem in the most unlikely place. They had calculated everything, but in the end, they couldn't defeat the will of the heavens. Chapter 599. On the Planet of Life. Under the Ice Divine Pagoda. The arcane supremacy used up all his vitality and died. He became the 13th supremacy to die after the 12 supremacies. No one had expected the calamity that would befall all life in the heavenly sanctum. In front of the only turning point, the once lofty sovereigns of the heavenly sanctum finally chose to descend into the mortal world and shoulder the burden of all life in the heavenly sanctum. Chao Tianqi raised his hand and closed the eyes of the arcane supremacy while trembling. He said with grief in his eyes, "I swear that I will not let your sacrifice be in vain. Tianfu will not perish. Snow of the heavens, follow the waves in death." With a shout, the snow surged like the waves in the sky. With Chao Tianqi as the center, an extremely cold air spread out. Frost and snow fell from the sky, turning 1,000 miles into a land of ice and snow. Seeing this, Ning Chen's expression changed. He said in a low voice, "What are you doing?" "Jiming Marquis, only you know how to build the Four Directions Divine Pagoda. There is not much time left. The power of the laws of this planet will recover soon. Every moment we delay increases the possibility of failure. I will use myself as the foundation to raise the power of ice and snow around the pagoda to the maximum. As for repairing the pagoda, I will leave it to you." As he finished speaking, Chao Tianqi released all of his martial arts. In an instant, 100 miles around the pagoda was sealed in ice and snow was falling. It was a shocking scene. For the last hope of Tianfu, Chao Tianqi did not care about his injured body. He used himself as the foundation to repair the pagoda. As he entered the heaven and earth, the ice and snow swirled. Within 100 miles, the temperature suddenly dropped. The collapse of the ice divine pagoda slowed down a little. Ning Chen sighed in his heart. He knew that he could not delay any longer. His palm turned into vital energy and activated the life scroll. It absorbed the coldness of the heaven and earth and started to repair the broken pagoda. The wind and snow split the sky. In the 9 heavens, thunder roared. The snow and wind swirled around the pagoda, repairing the cracks on the pagoda. Below the tower, Chao Tianqi released his true essence. Gradually, blood dyed the snowflakes red, and the divine tower, made of ice, was dyed a dazzling shade of red. The cracks closed and the formation pattern flourished. At the most crucial moment, Sui took a step and flew into the clouds. The 4 scrolls of reincarnation and the image of creation appeared in the mortal world. The 4 scrolls chimed in unison, growing and multiplying endlessly, drawing the power of ice and snow between heaven and earth into the divine pagoda. In an instant, rumbling sounds could be heard as the divine pagoda recovered. The pillar of light that shot into the starry sky was restored to its original state. When the divine towers were repaired, Mu Chang'e and the female sovereign immediately sensed it. Borrowing the power of the 4 directions divine towers, they pulled the great star of life towards them. Drink. At the final moment, success was imminent. The 2 immortal treading realm cultivators poured all their power into defying the heavens and changing their fate. Behind them, Xiao Bieli and the 6-flower venerable took a step forward and arrived behind the 2 of them. They condensed their essence and circulated it into their bodies in an instant. The great star shook and slowly shifted. Heaven and earth were merciless and sent down a calamity that could destroy the world. Finally, under the concerted efforts of the Knowing Destiny sect and the sacrifice of the 13 human supremes, the destiny was forcefully changed. Ning Chen landed in the frigid ice divine tower, which was shaking unceasingly in the life star. Seeing Chao Tianqi lying in the snow, his face changed. He immediately stepped forward to check. Star Venerable. His aura was so weak that it was almost undetectable. Ning Chen's eyes darkened. He condensed a vast essence in his palm and protected Chao Tianqi's life force. Then, he carried the ladder and rushed toward the teleportation array on the great star. At the same time, in the other 3 divine towers, Tiandu, Dong Sun, and Zhen Yang also rushed toward the teleportation array in the distance. In the center of the great star, the teleportation array had already reached its limit under the continuous impact. The array was flickering and gradually collapsing. Dong Sun, who was the closest to the array, arrived first. Seeing the array shaking unceasingly, his pupils shrank. He gathered his essence and circulated his essence to stabilize the array. Soon Tiandu and Jinyang arrived as well. Without any hesitation, they helped to stabilize the array at the same time. Where is Tai Xian? Why is he still here? Dong Sun shouted when he saw that the array's collapse was irreversible. There's something wrong with the frigid ice divine tower. Tai Xian must have been seriously injured. Hang in there for a while longer, Tiandu replied seriously. Right at this moment, a white-clothed figure rushed over from afar. In the blink of an eye, she arrived in front of the array. When the three-star venerables saw this, their expressions changed drastically. They said in shock, "How could this be? There's no time to explain. We must send her back to the Temple of Heaven as soon as possible." "Can this array still be used?" Ningchen asked seriously. "It can only be used once at most, and someone must be here to stabilize it," Dong Sun replied quickly. "Marquis Jiming, take the star venerables and leave first. The three of us will protect this array for you," Jinyang said. Time was of the essence, so Ningchen didn't refuse. He was about to enter the array when suddenly, the array shook violently again. The patterns flickered and became more unstable. Ningchen's expression darkened. He knew that the three venerables couldn't protect the array. He sighed softly and opened his eyes. Demonic chi surged. "Demonic body, I'll leave the star venerables to you." As he spoke, the two venerables separated again. The black-clothed, black-haired demonic body appeared. Demonic chi surged and shook the world. "You must come back alive." The two venerables looked at each other. The demonic body took Chao Tianxi and stepped into the array. Ning Chen stepped forward and concentrated his energy to help the three venerables stabilize the array. He sent the demonic body and Chao Tianxi away. "Please." The three venerables of the Tianfu mansion looked at him with firm and unregretful eyes. The demonic body gradually disappeared and left the planet. In the starry sky, the planet with life deviated from its orbit and headed in an unknown direction. It crashed into stars one after another and disappeared into the boundless starry sky. On a faraway planet, the demonic body appeared with Chao Tianxi. Mu Chang'e and Nu Chang's expressions changed. "Star venerables." Mu Chang'e stepped forward and took Chao Tianxi. He immediately checked his condition. Nu Chang also stepped forward and asked in a low voice, "Where's your main body?" The teleportation array was destroyed. "Chao Tianxi is in a critical situation. My main body and the other three venerables worked together to protect the array and send us back," the demonic body said calmly. "We're in trouble." Xiao Bieli's eyes turned gloomy when he heard this. And he said, "The gravity of that star is unlike an ordinary star. Even exalts in the mortal realm would need some time to leave it. During this period of time, the star would have already flown to an unknown location. Once one gets lost in the starry sky, then returning is as difficult as ascending the heavens." The demonic body's expression didn't change much. He said indifferently, "It's fine. As long as we don't die, there will always be a way. This matter is over, so I'll take my leave first." The demonic body didn't stay any longer. He stepped into the array and disappeared in an instant. In the heavenly sanctum sacred land, Ener was waiting by the teleportation array. Her face was filled with boredom. She had been wandering around for several days and nights. In the sacred land, the three calamities and half-step venerables knew that this little girl was the Jiming Marquis disciple. They didn't dare to be careless and would follow her wherever she went. They were afraid that something would happen to her. Just as Ener was getting impatient, light flashed from the array, and a black-robed figure walked out. Feng Yuan suppressed his devilish qi, and the coldness on his face lessened. The Sacred Land's experts immediately stepped forward and asked, "Where are the Jiming Marquis and Star Venerables? Why are you the only one back? Did you succeed?" "Yes." Ningchen nodded. "They'll be here soon." When everyone heard this, their faces were filled with excitement. Finally they had succeeded. "Move aside." Behind the crowd, Ener was blocked and could not come over. She pouted and squeezed forward as she shouted in a delicate voice. When the Sacred Land's experts heard this, they quickly moved aside and stopped blocking the little girl. "Didn't you say it would be quick? Why were you gone for so long?" Ener grabbed his hand and asked. "There was a small accident. It's fine now. Let's go back. Ningchen said softly and walked toward the array with Einer. Everyone, the war is over. We won't meet again. Before leaving, Ningchen looked at the Sacred Lands experts and said this. He disappeared without any reluctance. In the blink of an eye, there was no trace of him. In Tianheng City of the Central Continent, Ningchen walked out of the city with Einer. Ningchen, where are we going? Einer didn't understand. We're going to see your sister Bai. Then we're going back to the Eastern Prefecture to search for the Immortal Corpse Patrol. Ningchen said gently. Oh. Einer nodded and asked again. What's the Immortal Corpse Patrol? Ningchen thought for a moment and said. It's a flying genius. There's someone my master cares about. Oh. Einer responded and asked. Is it someone you like? Ningchen smiled. You're just a child. Do you know what it means to like someone? Einer wrinkled her nose and said unhappily. I'll be 14 soon. I'm not a child anymore. In my hometown, 14 years old is still a child. Ningchen stroked the little girl's hair and said softly. Liar. It's not like 14 years old isn't a child in the Eastern Divine Prefecture, said Einer. Heh. Ningchen smiled and said. The hometown I'm talking about is my master's hometown, before he came to the Divine Prefecture. It's very, very far from here, even farther than the Divine Prefecture. Einer immediately felt that her brain wasn't big enough. She said in shock, You also came from another star? Don't make wild guesses. Even master can't figure it out. You're so stupid, so it's even more impossible, said Ningchen. I'm not stupid. You're the stupid one, said Einer unhappily. In the Central Plains, two figures, one big and one small, headed north. Several days later, the celestial minister appeared in Eternal Heaven City and gave the order to retreat. The tens of thousands of soldiers on the front lines immediately retreated. Batch after batch of soldiers from the Divine Prefecture returned. The various sects in the inner realm were shocked. At first, they thought it was a trap. But when they saw the Divine Prefecture's army retreat all the way back to Eternal Heaven City, they were sure it was real. The war had ended so suddenly that no one knew why. It was just like how they didn't know why the Divine Prefecture had paid such a heavy price to invade the inner realm. In Eternal Heaven City, Muchanga stood on the city wall and sighed as he watched batch after batch of soldiers return. When they came, there were 30 sovereigns. When they left, there wasn't a single one left. Let's go. There's a price to pay for starting a war. This is what the Divine Prefecture should bear, sighed Xiao Libi. Wait a moment. I'll bid farewell to the Knowledge Marquis. With that, Muchanga waved his right hand, and the heavenly tower behind him shot into the clouds. Swordwell surged and appeared above the 9 heavens. The next moment, tens of thousands of swords chimed together. The 11th sword broke through the air and crossed the entire central state, bidding farewell to knowing destiny. Chapter 600. Outside Maqiao village, Hongyi stood quietly. Beside him, Einer was eating a stick of candied haws. In the village, a woman in a blue and white dress was busy. There was a thin layer of sweat on her beautiful face. Compared to the past, she was less cold and more worldly. The white flood dragon, who had cultivated for 1,000 years and transformed into a demon venerable, had finally integrated into this world, after knowing destiny, made it forget. Ningchen, can Sister Bai still remember us? After eating the candied haws, Einer raised her head and asked. Ningchen shook his head and said, It's very difficult. However, it doesn't matter if she can remember us or not. Perhaps this is the best outcome for her. The white flood dragon didn't like fighting, but because of hatred, it flooded the Golden Buddha temple and harmed all living things within 100 miles. Now that it could forget the past and help rebuild Maqiao village, which was destroyed in the disaster, it could be considered as atonement for its past mistakes. The two stood outside Maqiao village for half a day. When the sun rose to the middle, Ningchen looked at the little girl beside him and said, Let's go. Aren't we going to say goodbye to Sister Bai? Einer didn't understand. No, Ningchen said softly. We can't disturb her life anymore. It's enough to see that she's well. Let's go. After saying that, Ningchen didn't stay any longer. He held the little girl's hand and turned to leave. Einar looked back a few times reluctantly, but in the end, she had to leave again. In the village, Bai Yunlian, who was busy, looked up at the two figures disappearing in the distance. Her beautiful eyes flashed with confusion, and tears fell from her eyes. Half a day later, 300 miles away, the two people traveling east were getting faster and faster. When the sun was about to set, the surrounding air pressure suddenly dropped. Heaven and earth trembled, and Jizun blocked the way. Military advisor, the alliance leader wants to see you. Li Shanzun walked out and said respectfully. Hearing this, Ning Chen narrowed his eyes and said, "The war is over. Knowing destiny has nothing to do with the sections. We won't disturb you anymore." "I'm sorry, but the alliance head has ordered that we must invite the military advisor. I hope the military advisor can come with me." The respect on Honorable Li's face lessened somewhat, replaced by some toughness. "Oh, I'm very curious. Is this the alliance leader's idea or your own?" Ning Chen said lightly. "Naturally, it's the alliance head's idea. We're just following orders." As she spoke, a female supreme being walked out. She was the supreme being of the Red House, blocking the path to destiny awareness. Ning Chen's expression gradually turned cold as he said, "What if I say no? Then please excuse us." The void swirled. Amidst the mist, the third sovereign appeared in the wilderness. The three venerated beings blocked his path and attacked him forcefully. Ning Chen's expression became colder and colder, and he could not suppress his killing intent. "Einar, hold on tight," Ning Chen instructed. Then he waved his right hand and Taisher appeared. Blazing phoenix flames soared into the air. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Hong Lu coldly snorted. She flipped her delicate hand, and a red light flashed. She threw out a powerful palm strike that started the battle. With a loud clang, the sword and palm shook the wilderness. With this sudden attack, violent waves surged around the two of them, causing their clothes to flutter loudly. "I didn't expect that I had misjudged your hypocritical hearts. Is my existence really so frightening?" Ning Chen mocked coldly. "Jiming Marquis, you secretly connected with heaven's sanctum and betrayed the inner world. This is unforgivable." Exalted Mountainly stepped into the battle. He opened and closed his palms. "If you want to kill me, why do you need to find such a lame excuse? If you have the guts to come, then Jiming Marquis will accompany you." Taisher slashed down. Ning Chen held Einar's hand with his left hand and waved his sword with his right, blocking the former's palm strike. The shocking collision caused waves of dust to surge and the ground to crack. Shockwaves spread out, destroying mountains and rocks. "Sovereign, you're only SOTO," Ning Chen sneered. His figure flickered, and his sword split open the sky. 100 feet wide gust of wind tore through the air. The sword light was shocking. Bailey Zun stepped forward, and his palm formed a 10-sided flood. The water rippled and blocked the incoming sword light. "Oh, as expected, you came prepared," said Ning Chen indifferently. "Being prepared means being confident." Exalted Mountainly stepped forward and said coldly, "Please show your confidence," said Ning Chen indifferently. "As you wish." Before he even finished speaking, Exalted Mountain Li's figure flickered. With a flip of his palm, the earth moved and the mountains moved. The earth rushed up and turned into a mountain that fell from the sky. "Break the sky." Ning Chen's eyes narrowed. Taisher slashed through the air, and the swordlight roared and slashed through the sky. The ground shook violently, and the mountain collapsed. Immediately, sand surged into the sky like a wave. "Jiming Marquis, your struggle will only make your death more miserable." Exalted Hong Lu stepped forward, red lightning surging around him. The might of his palm shook the world. The sword shook the lightning, and Ning Chen took half a step back. His sword changed direction, and blood-red flames rose into the sky. The shocking blood-red flames burned the sky and boiled the sea. The expressions of the three exalts became serious. They circulated their origin energy to block the extreme power. After a few steps, the three exalts retreated at the same time. The shockwaves were difficult to disperse, and the blood chi in their bodies surged violently. The three exalts' expressions became serious. In just a few years, the Jiming Marquis had become even stronger. It probably wouldn't be long before a second legend of swordsmanship appeared in the world. If this kid doesn't die, he'll definitely become a big problem for us in the future. Everyone, don't hold back anymore. Bailey Zun's expression turned cold. He opened and closed his hands, and a raging wave was born. It swept across hundreds of miles, and the shocking power even made the setting sun lose its color. Seeing this, Ning Chen's eyes flashed with mockery. His figure flashed out like red lightning, and his sword slashed through the wave, and he instantly appeared before the former. At the moment of crisis, the ground shook, and huge rocks flew blocking the sword. When the sword stopped, lightning descended from the sky. Exalted Hong Lu rushed over, and the red lightning in his palm was like 1,000 birds chirping, extremely ear-piercing. Noisy, Ning Chen flashed out and waved his sword. The sword was like a dragon swimming out of the sea, and it forcefully clashed with the red lightning. After a moment of stalemate, the sword broke through the sea of lightning. The sword chi passed through the body, and a smear of blood splattered. A sword mark appeared on Hong Lu's left shoulder, and the hair beside her ear floated down silently. 3 against 1, and with the Phoenix origin killing body, he was able to suppress the 3 exalts without falling into a disadvantage. 4th sword, River of Forgetfulness. With a soft shout, the move of the Heavenly Mansion Sword Master descended. Ning Chen moved, and his sword slashed open the yellow spring. The aura of death that pervaded the sky rapidly converged, and the sword's power increased by 30%. The sudden change in the sword's momentum caught the 3 exalts off guard. They could not resist the sword's will, and they were injured in one move, and retreated a few steps. With just the 3 of you, you want to kill the knowing destiny state. Should I say that you are confident, or that you are stupid? At the end of his words, Ning Chen's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The wind and clouds on his sword changed, and a red brilliance lit up the sky. The shadow of a phoenix appeared behind him. In an instant, the red clothes disappeared, and the extremely fast sword took lives with each strike. Blood splattered everywhere, and their injuries worsened. Their bodies could not be seen clearly, and their swords could not be seen clearly. They were like the scythe of the Grim Reaper, mercilessly harvesting the lives of fools. In the extreme speed, the sword and palm collided, and the sky and earth shook violently. The knowing destiny state cultivators, who were 1 level lower than the 3 exalts, were not at a disadvantage at all. The moment the palm entered their bodies, it was drowned by the endless demonic chi, and dissipated in the blink of an eye. Their speed was inferior, and their cultivations could not be suppressed. The 3 exalts were in a dangerous situation. Retreat! The unexpected situation shocked the 3 exalts even more. They did not dare to fight for a long time, and tried to retreat. You can't leave. Ning Chen waved his sword, and sword light poured down like rain, blocking the 3 exalts' path of retreat. Then he stepped into the air, and Taisha rotated. Magnificent sword light gathered from all directions, and the ultimate sword reappeared in the world. Nirvana! The sword light crisscrossed, magnificent and dazzling. In the next moment, it descended from the sky and drowned the 3 exalts. Rumbling, the sky collapsed and the earth fell. Wherever the sword light passed, the earth within a radius of thousands of feet caved in, and a waterfall of blood dyed the dust red. It was bleak and dazzling. In the aftermath, the 3 exalts flew out, and blood splattered everywhere. They were in a sorry state. Who do you think will die first? Just as the 3 exalts landed on the ground, the cold voice of the Grim Reaper sounded again. Taisha moved, and the killing light was dazzling. Before Exaltedly Shan could turn around, the sword light had already pierced through his heart, and blood dyed Taisha's blade red. Let me tell you one last thing. I am really the Scarlet Demon. Exaltedly Shan's body shook violently, and his mouth opened and closed. He wanted to say something, but no words came out. The Venerable of Mount Li's eyes dimmed, filled with unwillingness and regret. The Venerable of Mount Li had lost his life with a single sword strike, and his soul was completely lost. Ning Chen waved his sword, and threw away the corpse on the sword. Then he looked at the 2 heavily injured exalts and said indifferently, "Now it's your turn." He arrived in an instant, and the sword light was deadly. Just as the supreme on the sword reached its peak, the sword in Ning Chen's hand suddenly shook, and the power of the sword weakened. Seeing this, exalted Red House flipped his palm to catch the sword. With a bang, his body flew out, and he took a step in the air to retreat quickly. Not far away, Bailey Zun did not dare to stay any longer. His figure flashed, and he left as well. Looking at the two leaving, Ning Chen did not chase after them. After a while, a trace of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. The demonic calamity consumed his body, and his aura weakened rapidly. What a pity! Ning Chen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and sighed in his heart. He held Yiner's hand and continued walking forward. Are you injured? Yiner's face was filled with worry. No. Ning Chen shook his head and said, I'm not injured. It's just a tribulation. It's nothing serious. Only then did Yiner relax. A look of worship flashed across her face, and she said, You were so powerful just now. She knew that those three were the legendary human sovereigns. Ning Chen had beaten them all away. Didn't that mean that Ning Chen was even more powerful than the strongest human sovereign? No wonder Grandpa Swordmaster lost back then. Learn well, and you'll be even more powerful than Master in the future. Ning Chen smiled. Really? Then why do you always say that I'm stupid? Yiner pouted. Heh. Ning Chen smiled and said, Who said that being smart means you have to have good talent, and being stupid means you have to have bad talent? No one is perfect, and no one is completely useless. Your talent is indeed not bad, but I'm not wrong to say that you're stupid. I'm not stupid, Yiner said angrily. Ning Chen smiled and rubbed the little girl's head, and did not continue to provoke her. Ning Chen, after becoming powerful, will I have to kill people? Under the night sky, Yiner hesitated for a long time before asking. Being born in this world, there are times when people have no choice. Ning Chen softly replied. He felt that this topic was too heavy, and a gentle expression appeared on his face. He smiled and said, You don't need to think too much about it. Look, Master is actually kind-hearted and peace-loving. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.